Hold up. What's going on, people? Hello, 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 guys. Tap, tap, tap the screen. Let's go ahead and get the likes up. Share this, share the live out. Tap the screen, share the live. Let's go ahead and get this things up to 8,000 likes. Let's get it up to 8,000 likes. Guys, I'm so happy and excited to be here, guys. This is the last night of Late Nights with Santana while we are dealing with world mass extinctions all around the world. Guys, I need you all here. I need you all locked in. I need you all doing the wonderful thing. So with that being said, tap, tap, tap the screen. Share the live out. Let's go ahead and get it up to 8,000 likes. I also need you guys to help me. Help me knock out the daily gift goal. It is the 2025. We need to go ahead and completely take care of those. Please, please, please. Let's take care of the 2025s. That helps boost the live. I need you guys to do all the wonderful things. It looks like there's a bunch of people rolling in. Let's go. Let's get it, guys. I actively need all of you doing the wonderful things. Keep tapping the screen, share the live out. Let's go ahead and get it up to 8,000 likes, and we will open up the panel. What's going on TikTok? What's going on Twitch? What's going on YouTube? What's going on Athena?
Hi. How you
are
doing,
you?
Santana?
I'm
good. Okay. I'm okay. Ooh, I'm glad you're doing good.
I'm excited. We're gonna have a really good night. I can already tell.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for you as well.
Yeah. Guys, keep tapping the screen. As soon as we get up to 8,000 likes, we will open up the panel. If you are interested in joining, please go ahead and request up. We will open up the panel tonight. This is the last night that we are going to get into our conversation around mass extinctions around the world. Guys, we got some amazing news today, and we're going to get into it. It's going to roll into our actual conversation. But if you are interested in grabbing a spot on the panel, please, please, please go ahead and request up. And we're going to go ahead and get this started as soon as we hit 8,000 likes. And again, guys, let's knock out the daily gift goal. The more that we actually do the things, the better it is and the more push we actually get. And it's super important that we get as much push as possible, because we want to go ahead and get this live out to as many people as possible. So we need you guys tapping the screen. We need you sharing the live out. Let's go ahead and get the likes up to 8,000 likes, but also let's get the shares up to 50 shares. As soon as we are at 8,000 likes, we will open up the panel. Hey, Alexa, stop. So Athena, as we get ready to get started, I do want to actually speak about last night, because again, we had a great night. We had a great night.
Course. Yeah, so, definitely. I mean, the ending part was kind of interesting, not gonna lie, kind of escalated a bit, but it was a good night.
For sure. Guys, if you are interested in joining the panel, please go ahead and request up. I'm gonna go ahead and start bringing people in, but as you get onto the panel, please mute yourself and wait to be introduced. Please mute yourself and wait to be introduced. If you are someone that wants to actually join the conversation, if you want to actually talk about the different mass G-sides going on around the world, and we do have multiple topics, including resistance/struggle is necessary, capitalism creates extermination, Black and brown bodies aren't equal, and you are complicit. If you are interested in getting in on any of those actual conversations, please go ahead and request up. I'm going to go ahead and start letting people in. And guys, as you get in, please remember, mute yourself, and we will get a introduction going. So please, as you hit the panel, mute yourself, or I will mute you. Either or. Cool. So Athena. As I said before we finished the night, we got $410 in donations, and we made another $52.64 in gifts. Ooh. So our 2-night total so far, go back here, let me do quick maths. Let's see here. Our 2-night total so far is $897. $897 off of donations and
Wow.
gifts. But guys,
That's actually crazy.
it's good, but with that being said, we have to outdo what we actually did these last two nights. Guys, this is last night, and we need everybody really locked in. We need everybody really doing the things. That means we need everybody tapping the screen. I need you to please lock in and tap the screen. I need you guys to actually get up to 50,000 likes as quickly as possible, and we're going to keep going. I need the shares. I need the shares to get up to 150 shares. Guys, the reason why we're here is not only to actually talk through these different mass exterminations all around the world, but we are here to walk the walk. And what that means is actually donating and doing the wonderful things to help the people that are in need, right? And what that means is that either you can, there's multiple links here, and we will go ahead and get those we will go ahead and get the actual links running in the poll. So if you are interested in donating directly, you can actually donate directly through those links in the poll. Also, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all of my pay links are in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks 24, Santana Speaks 24. Hey, AB. Santana Speaks 24 is the best way to support the live. So if you want to actually donate, please consider doing so. You can donate any and everything over these 3 nights that you all donate. My wife and I will be matching, right? So we want to make sure that we're donating, we're tapping the screen. Also, guys, any gifts that you guys send, the funds that we make off of the gifts, they will be donated as well. All right. So with that being said, Athena, would you like to start with the news that we got today?
Yeah, of course. So I think like there are two important things that happened this past couple of days. So of course today the first thing that was just amazing is that a ceasefire was agreed upon, a ceasefire deal. Now of course the ceasefire didn't start today. It's supposed to start on the 19th. So today Israel did unalive a couple of people in central Gaza while they were celebrating, unfortunately. But so a ceasefire has been reached between Hamas and also the Israel, basically, including a prisoner exchange and aid surge as well. So the ceasefire hasn't been fully officially released yet, but it's supposed to kind of be rolled out in 3 phases. The initial phase. So first of all, that's just amazing news. I just wanted to say that the fact that a ceasefire deal was reached. I don't know if you guys watched this. There were so many videos coming out of Gaza that were just people were celebrating, people were happy, people were crying, dancing. So that in itself is good news. But so the initial phase is supposed to last about 6 weeks. Includes a limited prisoner exchange and the partial withdrawal of Israeli troops in Gaza and a surge of aid into the enclave. So in the first 6 weeks, 33 Israeli captives are supposed to be released, specifically civilians who are over the age of 50. And then in exchange, Israel would release about 2,000 Palestinian hostages during that first phase, including 250 prisoners who were serving life sentences. Among the 2,000 are going to be 1,000 hostages, Palestinian hostages, who were detained after October the 7th. While these hostages are being exchanged, Israel will also withdraw its forces from Gaza's population centers to areas that are no more than 700 meters inside Gaza's border with Israel. But the Netzarim corridor is excluded. And then after phase 1 is passed, phase 2 and 3 are going to come as well, but details about second and third phases are still to be negotiated during the first phase. So generally in the first phase, in the second phase, Hamas are supposed to release all the remaining living captives, mostly the male soldiers, in return for the freeing of even more Palestinian hostages that have been held in the Israeli prison system. And in addition, Israel would initiate kind of complete withdrawal from Gaza as well. But that part of the phase needs to still be voted on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, by the Israeli cabinet. But of course, the far right wing members of the Israeli cabinet, especially Netanyahu's cabinet, are kind of like in disagreement. So this could probably lead to a civil war within Israel. And then the third phase, the details are unclear, but should the conditions of the second phase be met, the third will then see the bodies of the remaining hostages handed over in return for a 3 to 5 year reconstruction plan to be conducted under international supervision. So yeah, that's kind of like just the gist of it all. I think it's amazing. I mean, Gazans were celebrating, and this is just amazing for the age group as well. I don't know if I can say the age group or not, but this is amazing for the age group too, because now they have kind of like been pushed forward in the center stage on the international arena, as a major representative of Palestinian resistance in comparison to the PLO, which used to represent Palestine officially for decades now. So this is just amazing for the age group itself. And they have recuperated as well. I've been reading that they have actually come back stronger. They have had more recruits. Of course, you're going to make people suffer more. They're going to want to resist more. So, more people have been recruited in the age group. So, their numbers are strong as well right now. So, Israel has kind of effectively lost what it wanted to do. Like, it has not achieved any goal that it had. Yeah, it wanted to completely eliminate age group. It did like the opposite and made them much more popular and much more stronger. And has kind of effectively made itself or turned itself into a pariah state. So I personally think it has kind of accelerated its demise probably as a state. But we'll probably see. But the second thing I also wanted to address is in Sudan a couple of days ago. So on the 12th was something really, really huge also happened, which was the Sudanese army took over a very strategic city called Wa'ad Madani, which is about 200 kilometers or 124 miles southeast of the capital of Khartoum. And this is huge because the RSF had full control over Wa'ad Madani for over a year. And people had been suffering, people had been starved. It had just the whole civil war in general and genocide had displaced more than 12 million people already, which created one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. Over 60,000 people have been unalived at least. This is an underestimate. It's like an undercount. But Wa'ad Madani in general is incredibly important. It's a capital city of the Jazeera state. There have been countless videos coming out of Jazeera state this past year of atrocities that were committed by the RSF. And so this is amazing because when the RSF took over Wa'ad Madani in December of 2023, it gave them the ability to be able to move to other parts of the country, such as the Sennar in the southeast, Blue Nile in the east, and the White Nile in the south as well. But now they've kind of like lost it, which means they have lost all the other like logistical arrangements that could have been made into the capital. So yeah, I think this is a good thing because the RSF is actively committing the genocide. So yeah, both things were interesting that I want to share.
Yep. Absolutely. Hey, Athena, I shot you a Discord message. We're gonna have to do a quick reset. Gotta do a quick reset.
Uh, yeah, sure.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
guys, listen, this is what we're gonna do. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Guys, go either go on my page. I posted a video, go interact with the video, watch the video, like the video, blah, blah, blah. Or what you guys can do in the meantime while we hit a quick reset, either go to my Twitch or my YouTube or Blue Sky. Make sure you're following me on Twitch, YouTube, and Blue Sky. On Twitch, it's Santana24J. On YouTube, it's Santana Speaks. And on Blue Sky, it's Santana24J. So, guys, please, please, please make sure you're following me there. We're going to just hit a quick restart. We're going to come right back. And as soon as we get back, guys, we need you guys to do all the wonderful things, the tapping of the screen, the sharing of the live, all that wonderful things. And we're going to get right. All right, guys, we are back. We are back. Let's try it again. We got it. We got it. Let's try it again. Guys, as we get in, keep tapping the screen, keep tapping the screen, share the live out. Let's do all the wonderful things. Guys, I had to reset the daily gift goal. So if we can go ahead and knock that out a couple of times, that'll help push us out to the FYP. We need to go ahead and get more people in here, guys. Let's do all the things. Let's do all the things. You guys are so amazing. I'm so excited about this conversation tonight. I am happy. I am here. We got some great news. Athena was just giving us more information about that news, and we are ready to get into it, guys. We are talking about different G-sides all around the world. We're talking about the different G-sides that are affecting us all around the world. And not only that, we're talking about what we can actually do to help. We want to help, right? More than anything, we want to be the people that actually help. So what I need you guys to do is lock in with me, keep tapping the screen, keep sharing the live out, keep doing all the wonderful things. And we're going to get back started here in just a moment. I'm going to reset the daily gift goal. Again, guys, if we can keep knocking that out, that'll help push us out to the FYP. But also tapping the screen helps us get out to the FYP. Sharing the live helps us get out to the FYP. Sending your daily heart me, it's only one coin. It's only one coin. If you actually if you go above, it's like above the screen, there's a little right beside my name, there's a little orange heart. If you click on the little orange heart and then you hit where it says heart me, it's only 1 cent. It's only 1 cent, and it helps push us out to the FYP. Guys, if you are interested in joining the panel, go ahead and get up here. Go ahead and get up here. Keep tapping the screen. Let's keep the likes moving. Get up on the panel. We are talking about different G sides all around the world. Hey, Alexa, stop. So Athena was just telling us about the great news across the board, right? The great news in Palestine, and she also gave us more information. I have to go here, right? And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, and I want to get into it. And if you guys want to actually share your opinions, please, please, please go ahead and request up. We will get into it. But Athena, I want to talk to you about this for a second, right? So you said the ceasefire doesn't officially start until the 19th.
Mhm.
I know I read something, and maybe it's something more that needs to be fleshed out, but something that I saw is that Israel was pretty much I'm sorry, not Israel, Iran was saying that Bibi Netanyahu needed to go ahead and immediately sign the ceasefire. And I know you and I kind of talked on the back end, and I'm wondering, like, I maybe it's just me, but should we be cautious until all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed? What are your thoughts around that?
I think, of course, it is incredibly important to stay cautious, because Israel does have a history of either rejecting peace deals or also violating ceasefire agreements. It has done that not only with Palestine but also with other countries. I mean, it did that with Lebanon as well.
Mhm.
So, of course, it's important to still stay cautious. Um, I think though Netanyahu has like no other choice. The I don't know if people have been paying attention to what's happening to Israeli society within, but it is turning into like complete chaos. Economically, I think about 40,000 or more than 40,000 businesses had closed. These ITF soldiers are coming back or going back to Israel after having committed a G-side, and are having a lot of psychological issues and unaliving themselves. And recently as well, Israel has kind of told them that they shouldn't upload their videos anymore because a lot of the videos that we have right now of them committing war crimes were literally uploaded by them
Mm.
by themselves. So that has led some organizations like the Rajab organization or the Israeli Genocide Tracker, G-Side Tracker, sorry, to track IDF soldiers when they leave Israel and go abroad, because some of them have gone on holiday and stuff like that. So you have that issue. You have the fact that Israel has become a pariah state. You have the ICJ G-side case. Um, Israeli society from within, Netanyahu already prior to October the 7th was incredibly unpopular because he tried to reform the judicial system. So for about 30 to 40 weeks, every Saturday, Israeli citizens were protesting against Netanyahu for him to step down. But I think what's important here is that they weren't protesting against him because of how of his policies towards Palestinians, because the dehumanization of Palestinians, unfortunately, within Israel is the status quo.
Mm.
Only about 3% of Israelis think the IDF is doing too much. Only 3%. And so uh, I was listening to some Israeli political commentators, and they were saying that Netanyahu was kind of pressured to agree to this because of how Israeli society was kind of chaotic from within. The problem is, though, that he is dependent on his right wing coalition
Hmm.
to stay in power, and they're unhappy because they just want to basically quote unquote finish the job. They want to eliminate all Palestinians immediately. And so they are not happy with this ceasefire deal. So I don't know what's going to happen after this. So it is important to stay cautious, but it's also important to celebrate small wins for morale.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with that. We're gonna go around the panel and get more, and we're gonna get into the topics in just a moment. But chat, let's keep tapping the screen. Let's get the likes up again. We're only at about almost 7,000 likes. Let's get the likes up to 25,000 likes. Also, let's get the shares up to 100 shares, guys. Tapping the screen, sharing the likes live out. That helps actually boost the live, guys. It's super important what we're doing here tonight. The reason why we are here, this is the third night of Late Nights with Santana, where we are dealing with mass exterminations worldwide. We're looking at not only what's happening in Palestine, but multiple G-sides that are happening all around the world. I know we're starting with Palestine, but we're going to get into multiple ones. So if you guys are interested in joining the panel and joining the conversation, we are willing to accept any and everyone. Even if you have an opposite position, you are more than welcome to join the panel. The only thing that we will remember is this is Late Nights with Santana, and we will have respectful discord if you have an opposite stance. With that being said, we are also taking up donations to actually help those people that are affected in those areas. And so what that actually means is you can actually donate in multiple ways. You can either donate directly via one of these links that are listed here. You can actually go donate directly. And mods, can we get those links running in we do, we have them running in the polls right now, so you can actually go and donate directly, or you guys can donate Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. All of my pay links are in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks 24. Santana Speaks 24 is the best way to support. And over these 3 nights, any and everything that you guys donate, my wife and I will be matching. So far, we've raised a good amount of money, but I know we can do better this evening. And also, with that being said, all money made from any gifts will be donated as well. So that's why it's important. We get a 2-for-1, right? With knocking out these daily gifts, and I keep resetting them as these 1-cent gift goals. It's really important to knock those out. I keep resetting them as these one coin gift goal, because knocking those out actually helps us get out to the FYP, and we get to donate that money to these people that are in need. So please consider donating if you can. If not, you're here. Keep tapping the screen, sharing the live out. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm perhaps a bit more pessimistic about the ceasefire than most.
Listen, okay, you tell me about it, because I'm one of those type of people that's like, let's make sure that everything happens. Give me your opinion on it.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, I mean, it's a good sign, and it shows that there's some what's the word? Some concessions that were forced. The Israelis were forced to make a few concessions that they didn't want to make. They didn't want to release, for example, the prisoners. They obviously wanted to keep. Like ultimately, the goal was to completely take over the Gaza Strip. A lot of people seem to forget that Benjamin Netanyahu, when he was the finance minister back in 2005, he threw a big temper tantrum and resigned from his post in protest when Ariel Sharon withdrew infantry and tanks from Gaza. I mean, of course, he still kept the aerial blockade and the naval blockade, but that wasn't enough for Netanyahu. He wanted to completely cleanse all of the Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip and take all of that 140 square miles of land to himself. And so when Ariel Sharon did not do that, that's what angered Netanyahu. He felt that more should have been done to, I guess, prevent the resurgence of the age groupers who just, purify, quote unquote, the Zionist state. And so with that being the case, that's what Netanyahu's always wanted to do. That's what he was attempting to do over the last 15 months. So to see that he is now having to confront the reality of that just not being tenable is certainly a hard pill for him to swallow. However, the suffering and death of the Palestinian people, unfortunately, I don't think that it's going to stop. And I hate to say that, and I want to be wrong. I genuinely do. But at the same time, I also look at the situation and think, like you see, for example, Trump going around trying to take credit for crap that really has nothing to do with him. The reason Trump going around trying to take. Oh, and Rosemary, you're echoing. The only reason there's a ceasefire is because international pressure has only continued to grow. Those who followed me for a while. International pressure has only continued to grow. Those who followed me for a while.
I'm gonna mute you, Rosemary. If you could just go like you're checking the text message. There you go, and then come back. But please just stay on mute for a moment until we come to you. But that should take care of your echo. Now just come back so you can see me. That should take care of your echo. Go ahead and finish your point for me, Alex.
Sure. So those who've been following me for a while know that I've been making the prediction that as the Zionists fail to link tactical to operational success, that's leading to more and more resistance. So they're just going to continue to lose troops. They're going to continue to lose equipment. They're going to continue to face international backlash. And ultimately, the United States will not for example, invade Iran for them. So Israel, as it becomes a pariah, also drags the United States down into the depths of despair with it. So, for example, um, the Zionists wants the U.S. to invade Iran, just like they wanted the U.S. to invade Iraq for them. Unfortunately, in the case of Iraq, they got their wish. In the case of Libya, they got their wish. But I think America is now wising up to the antics, if you will, of Zionists. And with that being the case, that's certainly, like, for example, when amphibious warships are moved into the Mediterranean right after October 7th, the intent was clear. The plan was to actually put U.S. troops on the ground in Gaza. And it was actually General Eric Smith, the commandant of the Marine Corps, who negotiated with the Biden administration and prevented that from happening. The guy literally had a heart attack, by the way, as a result of that. And so, anyway, I know this because I was contemplating resigning my commission at the time, thinking if they order me to go into Gaza, I'm like, that's it. I'm dropping my papers. I'm out.
Oh man, that would have been insane.
And so, but because of General Smith's intervention, I did not do that. And so, anyway, but with that being said, right, for the Zionists, they wanted that support. Basically, they wanted somebody else to do their dirty work for them because they knew they would take a lot of casualties. They didn't want to take casualties. That's the way they've always been. With that being the case, they've been forced. Their hand is being forced. And regardless of who's in office, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden,
listen,
I mean, the public backlash is only going to keep growing.
So listen, I want to get into that because I want to, I'm going to speak on that because I have something that I really want to say because I don't want to give it away yet. Athena, you wanted to respond, and then I have something that I want to add specifically about Trump and his approach with all of this. But Athena, let me give you the floor first.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to say one thing. I don't think anybody is kind of like naive enough to think that Palestinians are gonna like miraculously stop suffering now. I don't think anybody believes that. But I do know that the only people who know how to navigate their way around Israel politically and militarily are the H group, are Hamas. They are people who are in Gaza. Hamas does not necessarily have a history of lying. They have been quite more credible and accurate in a lot of the things that they say. So I do think that they are very well aware of all the times that Israel has violated ceasefires. They're very well aware of all of these different intrinsic details, and yet people in Gaza are still celebrating for a reason. And that reason is that people just need some relief after 15 months of just complete G-side starvation. People need relief. And that is how liberation works. Because I keep saying it, liberation is a marathon. That's just those are the cards you are dealt with when you are a colonized people, especially a colonized people without a military. Liberation for you is a marathon. You have to continue running it until you exhaust the colonial empire. And the only way that colonized people will be able to continue running the marathon is if they continue having boosts of morale, right? So I think like if people in Gaza, if Hamas decide or the H group decide to use this as a boost for their morale, I don't necessarily see a problem with this. I think it's important to echo their voices. It's important to realize that they know what they're doing. This is not the first time they've been dealing with Israel. And so I understand that some people might have critiques and worries. And I mean, I have a lot of worries as well. I think, but for now, we really need to allow Gazans the space to experience all of this grief and emotions and relief that they haven't been able to feel or process for the past 15 plus months.
Yeah, I think there's something to that as far as letting the people letting the people lead, right? Especially the people that are on the ground and the people that have made it through to this point. So I think that's super important. With that being said, I want to actually speak to something, and I don't want to make this about politics, right? But I do want to speak to Donald Trump, right? and not only Donald Trump, but people who are crediting this ceasefire to Donald Trump, which is absolutely asinine. Donald Trump has no power. I I want to make sure that I say that again because I know there are certain Trump supporters who confuse like when he becomes the president in the United States. There's certain Trump supporters who ever since November the 6th has been saying Donald Trump is your president. No, he's not. He's a president elect. He has influence, but he doesn't have power. And even more than that, Athena said something that I feel like is super important to say as well. It's not just about a specific president, right? It's not about Joe Biden. It's not about Donald Trump. Eh, The problem that I've had with Donald Trump when it comes to him, quote unquote, ending the war is because people, or for him to say that he could actually end the war, whether it be in Ukraine or in Palestine or anywhere, within 24 hours of him becoming president elect is insane because it takes a massive amount of people and energy and effort and negotiations. And for one person to say, I am the missing key to actually creating this thing is mind blowing. It doesn't work that way. It absolutely doesn't work that way. And so that's why I have such a problem with Donald Trump taking credit for what happened. Now, I know there's more nuances. I know there's more happening. I know there's again, I'm a little bit in between both Athena and Alex. I'm just again, I'm cautiously optimistic and I want everything to go off without a hitch. But I don't trust, and this is just being real. I don't trust Israel. I don't trust Bibi Netanyahu. I know that what they're supposed to do, but there could be more. But with that being said, um, no matter the quote unquote threats that Donald Trump made, I'm not attributing this to him. So that I just wanted to be clear on that point because I feel like there was a little bit of confusion and people have been talking around that point and saying that over and over and over. And yeah, that's not a thing. So Athena, Alex, I kind of want to move this
Mhm.
forward as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think my opinion is coming from me trusting Israel because I don't.
Right,
They're
right.
like
No, no, no,
a
absolutely.
colonial tea state.
Mhm.
It's more about me trusting people in Gaza, me trusting the age group as well, because I have seen their record in the past. So it's more about me trusting them and knowing that they will know what they're doing and what they're dealing with, and not necessarily with Israel, because I don't think anybody should trust Israel. I don't think Israel trusts itself a lot of the times when it's like they try to convince themselves of their lies. So um, I think I trust though Gazans fully is what I'm saying.
Mhm, mhm.
But one thing I read in the comments, if you don't mind, I think it also
Go ahead.
fits to our first topic when it comes to resistance. Struggle is necessary. Somebody in the comments said, "I don't support H group, but I want the people of Gaza to be safe and free."
Mhm.
Um, why do you think that is? Maybe Santana. Why do you think a lot of people choose not to support the H group?
Well, plain and simple. I mean, they've been labeled a terrorist group, right? And or a T group. I'm sorry. But when you think about a T group, especially here in the United States, people. I know I'm of the age where I start thinking about like 9/11, right?
Mhm.
And what happened as far as the Twin Towers and things like that. But also, I think in the United States, there's also a disconnect, and it kind of goes back to the point that I've made a couple of times before here, as far as like us having privilege, right? The
Mhm.
fact that we have privilege, and it's not something that we deal with here in the United States. I used to run this thought experiment, right? And I used to talk about how um, certain T groups would actually like unalive themselves in order to like quote unquote further their cause. You get what I'm saying? like
Mhm.
boom, boom. And so the thought process, and I would, I'm a little bit off. I ran it in my head myself, was like, okay, on surface level, this seems bad. But then if someone is so locked into their conviction and they believe what they believe, or they've seen different things, like what's to say their perspective isn't justified to them, or there isn't more to their perspective than we have versus our limited scope of view. But when it comes back to just like people not wanting to support the age group, because again, I wouldn't say that I support them, right?
Mhm.
But also I am not educated enough as far as what's going on. I just know that being labeled a T group, especially in the United States of America, is a big deal.
Mhm. Do you know that Nelson Mandela was labeled a T
Yeah,
by the American
and
government
that's my point as well,
up
right?
until 2008 or 2013, I think?
Hmm.
Was the Triple K labeled a T
They have
organization?
never been labeled one, exactly. But and that's the thing, right? The thing that like
Mhm.
they slap that on certain quote unquote people, especially you know
BIPOC
people of the
people.
darkest, exactly.
Mhm.
So that's the
Yeah.
thing.
Because interestingly, the United Nations doesn't categorize, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the United Nations does not categorize the age group as a T organization. That's the,
Really,
yeah, the
I didn't
United
know that either.
Nations. Mhm. So internationally, the age group is not categorized as a T group. It's only categorized as a T group in the EU and America, like basically like strong, like staunch allies of Israel
Hmm.
categorized as a T group, but not the United Nations.
Hmm.
And so it's still categorized as like a resistance group as well. So it hasn't like passed that threshold to be a T organization. So I don't know. I think maybe it fits into the first point, right? The first point, and also black and brown bodies aren't equal. So the first point, um, um, I don't know. How can you combat a colonial state um, that is actively terrorizing you for 75 plus years without violence, I guess,
Yeah.
when this particular state doesn't care about negotiations because, for example, the age group was formed in December of 1987 during the first Intifada. Intifada means just uprising in Arabic. And on June the 1st of 1988, so just a couple of months after, the leader of the age group, Mahmoud al-Zahar, traveled from Gaza to Tel Aviv to submit the offer for like a peace proposal with the then defense minister Yitzhak Rabin, and that was completely ignored. And then also in 1988, the founder agreed to negotiate with Israel. It was also ignored. Um, I think there were like a total of, there were a couple of peace offerings or openings for peace negotiations that were offered by the age group that were largely ignored. So my question is, I don't know. If people viewed black and brown bodies as equal, would they have demonized our right to self-defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty straightforward question and answer for me. All right. Guys, if let's do this. Keep tapping the screen. Let's go ahead and get the likes up. We're almost at 25,000 likes. Let's go ahead and get the likes up to 50,000 likes. Let's get the shares up. Let's get the shares up to 100 shares. If you are interested in joining the panel, especially if you are interested in actually answering the question that Athena just threw out, please, 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 please go ahead and request up. We would love to hear your opinion, especially if you are someone that has not joined the panel before and you have a perspective. Please, please, please go ahead and join the panel, and we will go from there. Also, guys, let me read this off. Guys, as we get it started the right way, massive W's in the chat for, I think it's pronounced Che. Che, massive W's in the chat for Che, who sent a $40 donation, through Cash App. Guys, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all of my pay links are in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks 24. Santana Speaks 24 is the best way to support the live. Not only when you guys donate are you supporting the live, but every single penny that you guys send tonight. This is the last night for it. So if you're going to do it tonight. Everything that you donate here with the Late Nights with Santana is going to be directly donated to help support those people affected by different G-sides all around the world. So you can actually donate at Santana Speaks 24, or if you want to actually make a direct donation yourself, you can donate at any of these links here. We have them running in the poll in the bio. And last but not least, any and all gifts, the money that we make off of any gifts, those will be donated as well. So please, please, please consider actually donating if you can. And my wife and I have made a pledge to actually match everything that you guys donate over the 3 nights. So this is the last night. This is the 3rd night. If you guys have it, please, please, please consider donating. With that being said, if you want to actually join the panel, go ahead and request up. Athena threw out a great question about whether these certain T groups would actually be labeled as T groups if black or brown bodies were equal. To me, the answer would be no, right? And I say that, Athena, just because of the actual, you stole my thunder, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the Triple K has been a T group that has plagued the United States from its inception. And the simple fact of the matter is the Triple K has been a group that has been harmful to black people, period. Hard stop, right? They have done so much harm in so many different ways, and it's super funny. I heard someone talking about it today, saying, "Oh, they don't still exist." Yeah, the Triple K still exists today. They are passing out flyers. They are taking or trying to add new members. And the simple fact of the matter is, their president is actually virtual signaling that they're welcome. So they've never been classified as such, and they're still welcome, and we all know why. Pretty simple. Also, guys, W's in the chat for Chase. Chase sent a $50 donation. Guys, thank you so much, Chase. Chase said one more donation for the last night. Chase, you have been here every night with us. Chase, you've donated every night. Chase, you have been so amazing. Thank you so much for all of your energy, effort, all of your time, for listening, but also helping us support. Guys, if you want to be cool like Chase, please consider donating. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, Santana Speaks 24. Again, everything that we actually raise over these 3 nights will be donated to help support those people affected by G-side. And myself and my wife will match you dollar for dollar. So please get in. This is the last night for it. With that being said, I know I spoke on it. Alex, do you want to answer Athena's question?
I guess what I would say is when it comes to T-wordism, there is a certain element of subjectivity to it. And it is true that when it comes down to, for example, the Triple K or even the American Yahtzee Party, neither one of them was actually classified as a T group. Similarly, when just about every single U.S. president we've ever elected has been a war criminal, it's kind of like a fox guarding a chicken coop, where the U.S. puts itself up as essentially the arbiter of who is and who isn't a T word. When I'm over here, if I had to give a definition of T wordism, I would say it's anybody who violates the Geneva Conventions. So that's, I think, pretty objective. That'd be a little bit of debate as to maybe what does or doesn't constitute a violation of the Geneva Conventions. But if we're going per the Geneva Conventions, then the H group would not be a T group, because they're an occupied people and they have a right to resist. That's actually in the Geneva Conventions. So that is in stark contrast to, say, the IOF, which actively is violating the Geneva Conventions. Even when they have ceasefires like they do with Lebanon, they're still bombing Lebanon. If we're talking about the Triple K, I don't even know where to start with them in terms of the human sex trafficking when it comes to, oh geez, if I just go into more detail, the slide's going to get taken down. I'm not sure how to say it. No, we had TikTok safe, but we all know about Emmett Till, right? And that's just for starters. That's unfortunately not the only instance of trying to, don't know, I don't want to get live taken down, but you know where I'm going with this. So the point though is that that's a pretty obvious, clear, incontrovertible example of T-wordism. But the U.S. again being the empire that it is doesn't really see it that way too much about who can. It's always about corporate interests at the end of the day, and if black and brown bodies can be used in a way that's economically beneficial, then if they ever resist or try to overcome that, then there's going to be a very violent reaction, right? They're going to be labeled T-words, they're going to be smeared, they're going to be attacked, and that's essentially always been the case throughout U.S. history, unfortunately. So, but I hope that is a response.
I think that is a good response. I think Santana, if you could make me a bit bigger, I'd love to show a photo to kind of put this into perspective of how many countries do categorize it as a T organization and how many countries don't. So this is a map. Excuse me?
You're not sharing. There we go.
There we go. So everything that's green does not recognize H group as a T organization. And the reds recognize it as a T organization. So Canada, US, UK, Egypt, Israel, EU, Australia, and Japan recognize it as a T organization. And everything else that's green does not. So a majority of the world doesn't recognize it as a T organization. And yet the states that do recognize it as a T organization are colonial states, I think, or former colonial states. So I think it kind of, when you see it like this in front of you, it kind of puts it into perspective. And I don't know, maybe it could change people's minds or kind of like make them understand the situation a bit better.
Why does Egypt recognize them as a T organization? That's just my confusion.
I don't know. I guess
I can speak to that.
Is it because CC's a Zio puppet? Is that why?
CC. So the reason CC does that is because because of Egypt historically did fight for the Palestinians when Nasser was around. They did. In fact, Anwar Sadat originally did too before Camp David. So CC was educated in the West for much of his career, and he knew, for example, that when Mohammed Morsi came to power in 2013. Following the first Arab Spring, Morsi vowed to fight for the Palestinians, to kind of pick up the torch from Nasser and help the Palestinians. But al-Sisi knows, oh crap, if you do that, then we're going to get hit by the U.S. The U.S. is going to invade us. They're going to pillage us. In fact, that almost happened when Nasser was around, hence the bombing of the U.S.'s Liberty. The Zios blew up the ship, blamed it on Egypt because they wanted
to boom boom Egypt.
Hold on one second.
Right,
we don't, Fad and Z, we don't want to speak over each other. I wanted to actually come to you next, but Alex, go ahead and finish your point. I got something I want to read off, and then I want to come to you next. But go ahead and finish that point for us,
sure.
Alex.
So the point is that they were trying to get the U.S. to invade Egypt for them. They did get the U.S. to invade Iraq for them. They did get the U.S. to bomb Libya for them. And so every country that tries to help them gets hit. And so if you are an Arab leader and you're trying to help the Palestinians, especially in the case of Egypt, which has a history, and because of how geographically close it is to occupied Palestine, al-Sisi puts them on the list because he's afraid of his country essentially getting obliterated by the U.S., which is exactly what happened, like I said, to Iraq and to Libya. So hopefully that answers your question.
I just feel like my bad.
No, you're good. I'm going to come to you. I want to read this off real quick, though, before I do. Guys, W's in the chat for massive W's in the chat for Corey. Corey sent a $5 donation that says from Yappy AWS Red Win in the chat. He asked me to send this since he's too dumb to figure out Venmo. Thank you so much, Corey. You're amazing. W's in the chat for Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Sarah sent a $3 donation to say last donation of the last night. Sarah, you are amazing. Thank you so much for your donation. And again, W's in the chat for Che, who sent another $10 donation. Guys, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. All my pay links are in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks 24. Santana Speaks 24 is the best way to actually support. And it's not just the live, guys. We are not just talking the talk, but we are walking the walk. We are educating people about different G-sides that are happening around the world. But at the same time, we are taking up donations to help those people directly affected by the G-side. So there's a couple of ways that you can actually play your part, right? We are here. The likes aren't moving quick enough. If you guys can tap the screen, let's get it up to 50,000 likes. You can like the screen. You can share the live out. Both of those are free. and it gets more people in here, it helps pushes us out to the FYP. So those things are free. You can do those. That really helps. You can send your daily heart meat. It's only 1 coin. If you look right above the screen, there's like a little orange heart by my name. Just click on it and send your daily heart me. Again, it's only 1 coin. That helps boost the live. That gets more people in. And again, more engagement, and we can really help drum up more support. Also, we do have our daily gift goal, which is the hot peppers. I'm resetting these as these small goals because we want to keep knocking those goals out, because any and everything that we are able to collect with any type of gift, the monies that we make off of these gifts will be directly donated as well. And last but not least, again, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, Santana Speaks 24. If you have it, please, please, please consider donating, and we will donate 100% of everything that we earn. This is the 3rd night. This is the last night, and we will be donating all the money that we earn off of donations over these 3 nights. And my wife and I will be matching you guys dollar for dollar for all 3 nights. So once we have that total, everything that we're able to make off of donations, we're going to match that and actually donate it to the cause. Oh, also, guys, if you want to donate directly yourself, there's 3 links here where you can actually donate directly yourself. And also the links are running in the in my poll. So if you can, please, please, please consider donating or gifting, or at the very least, tap the screen, get the likes up to 50,000 likes, get the shares up to 150 shares, do all the wonderful things. Let's get more people in here. With that being said, Fonzie, I want to give you the floor, and I'll give you the opportunity because it seems like you wanted to add more to that. I would love to hear your thoughts as far as what you want to add to that. But also, we do have a couple of different prompts in the background. If you wanted to actually address any of the prompts in the background, including the first one that is resistance/struggle is necessary. Capitalism creates extermination. Black and brown bodies aren't equal, and you are complicit. So I would love to give you hear what you have to say, but then if you want to speak to any of those topics, the floor is yours.
I mean, yeah, with the first point, I feel like that is very, very essential with resistance and struggle. And it's not just countries that are obviously being invaded and being occupied. It's also our country. People don't realize that we are already being occupied by a foreign entity. APEC is taking control of our government. And, you know, right now, we could, you know, because of TikTok, now everything's being exposed, you know, like if people were to tell me this like 5-6 years ago, I'd be completely clueless on what APEC was. Like, I knew what a super PAC was. I knew what lobbyist groups are. But when it comes to resistance and struggle, we slowly need to realize that if we truly want to be the nation that we always claim to be, this righteous nation.
Fonzie, I'm sorry to cut you off. I get it. I really don't want to keep this, you know, centralized in the United States. The point of this live is to really shine the light as far as everything that's happening around the world, especially because even within the United States, you're absolutely right. We have our own problems here. I completely agree with you, but I want to make sure that we're shining the light on other struggles around the world, not just what's happening here in the U.S.
Oh no, I was going to branch out.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was starting from there, but
okay, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. And like when we realize like the hypocrisy of like, you know, what our government does, what like this colonialism does, you know, it starts to expose what the U.S. did to South America, what we did to Vietnam, what's being done to the Middle East, what's being done to the nations in Africa, right? Like who's funding who, and a lot of the ways that these proxy wars are being funded is indirectly. Like all these politicians, how do they make their money, right? It's through blood money, right? It's through the unaliving of thousands and thousands of innocent people, you know, through invading, through occupation. And which gets to that second point, that capitalism does create extermination, right? How do these people stay rich? They stay rich by going to foreign countries, stealing their resources, stealing oil, whether it be oil, gold, diamond, steel, whatever it is. They go to other countries, they invade, they steal their resources, and they get out, not even with a slap on the wrist, just they get away with everything. We've seen that with Iraq. I have read that they're also trying to take some of the oil in Gaza. We see in Congo, right? They're trying to take the diamond, trying to mine the diamonds there, in so many ways. And I just feel like, you know, if people don't realize this soon enough, then it's only going to get worse, and more countries are going to be destroyed. You know, a lot of the racists are like, oh, why are there so many immigrants coming? Well, maybe if you didn't invade their countries and steal their resources and destroy their homes, maybe there wouldn't be a mass migration of immigrants wanting to come to other countries. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe that wouldn't exist.
Yeah, no, you listen, I think a lot of people don't understand, to your point, how disruptive the United States has been throughout the entire world. And again, I think that goes back to something that I stated, which was a, a lot of people who are United States citizens live inside of a bubble, right? And not just a bubble of privilege, but a bubble of ignorance, in the sense that uh, we don't really expand and find out what's happening outside or outside of our borders, right? And that's harmful. I think there's a lot of misinformation that's given, and we have an opportunity to actually learn and grow and teach. And I think that's super important. Um, Fonzie, I would love to hear your opinion on this, because you weren't on the panel earlier, and when we were talking about this, but as of right now, Palestine and Israel, or Hamas, I'm sorry, H group in Israel has come to an agreement for a ceasefire. What are your high level thoughts as far as that the happenings around that?
I mean, I am happy to hear that, like, you know, they have agreed to the first phase of the ceasefire. But I know that's what it'll be effective Sunday. Like the
The
ceasefire will
19th. Yep.
yeah. And like I did hear, like even after the agreement, like Israel did unalive 30 more people through another airstrike,
Yeah.
sadly.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is they did the same thing with Lebanon. They both agreed to the ceasefire, and now look at what they're still doing to Lebanon. And I like my worry is like, okay, the first phase is reached. What would happen in terms of the progression through the second phase and whatever phase comes after, and then the Palestinian Authority too? Like, I feel like they have to be dismantled, because deep down they work for Israel. They're agents of Israel, and what they're doing to their own people in West Bank, it's just disgusting.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I completely agree. I absolutely agree with that. Sarah, how are you?
Hi. Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wanted
Go
to
ahead,
say
Athena.
something to Fonzie right before we go to Sarah. I think I keep saying this all the time. I even hosted a live about this before. I feel like liberation is a marathon. I think, regardless of if we trust Israel or not, I don't think we should ever trust a colonial entity. I think we should fully trust the people who are resisting said colonial entity. And we also have to understand that the fight for freedom, justice, and equality is not a quick or easy process. It is a long time struggle that does require endurance. It requires persistence. It requires sustained effort. And in order to continue having endurance, persistence, and kind of like this sustained effort, you have to be able to celebrate these small wins, right? For example, the Eritrean War of Independence lasted 30 years, right? 30 years of just complete genocide of the Eritrean people. Did not have a military, did not have jets, asymmetric warfare, guerrilla warfare, were being airstriked and genocided. Starvation was being used as a weapon of war. In Eritrea and northern Ethiopia, about 1 million people died from famine alone in the 1980s. And then you had the violence as well. Like, there were massacres of Eritrean people where they were like up to 3,000 people were being unalived in a couple of days, in like 1-2 days, right? So it was incredibly bloody and violent. And yet, anytime the Eritrean liberation movements of the EPLF, it was the ELF in the firstly, but then the EPLF took over to kind of like represent Eritrean resistance. Anytime they kind of defeated an Ethiopian battalion or some security forces, they took over the tanks, and they knew that the terrain would not allow them to use tanks because they were in the highlands and the lowlands. But they still took tanks and drove around in those tanks to boost morale. So even the simple act of stealing a tank, they used to continue boosting that morale. And boosting your morale is the only thing that can help you overcome exhaustion and setbacks, right? And so you have to see it like a marathon. And if you don't celebrate the small wins, and you don't have that hope or that morale, it's going to be incredibly hard to continue running this marathon. And that's why I think it was a relief to see people in Gaza today kind of celebrating and being happy and having this sigh of relief, at least.
It definitely was relieving, but I really wish that like now after looking all this damage, especially during the rebuilding process, what was the estimate? It would take more than a handful of decades.
No, Fonzie, don't talk about that yet, because that's the point I kept wanting to get to. I want to talk about that, but don't speak on that part yet. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry to cut you off, because you're going exactly where I want to go. But if you can, I want to give you the floor, but don't talk about that too much just yet.
Okay. But like I just for people who do have knowledge about like what was it, the UN rules, like what would be required, like let's just say for the UN to send peacekeeping troops to Gaza for the rebuilding. I'm not going to touch on the rebuilding, but like let's just say while it's happening, what would be required for that?
I can look that up.
Frankly, when it comes to the UN, I mean, I hate to say this, but the world is technically in a state of anarchy. I mean, if the United States wanted to, speaking in very hypothetical terms here, if the US hypothetically wanted to, it could just unilaterally send troops there or send whoever, people there, to assist in, digging people out of the rubble and investing in the infrastructure and providing humanitarian assistance and so on and so forth. And the UN can wave its finger, and I don't think the UN would be against the US actually being philanthropic if that were to be the case. But the point, though, is there isn't really a requirement, because the question is who really enforces international law. I mean, that's always been up in the air, right?
But like any country theoretically could send in. It doesn't just have to be by the order of the US. It could be anybody. It could be Ireland, any other country too.
Yeah, in theory. Of course, then, I mean, you'd have to be somebody that theoretically has leverage, though, over the Zionists, right? Because they still have an arsenal, and let's say because like Ireland they actually recently just joined the South Africa's case of genocide against Israel. And anyway, they've made their case. They've pledged their solidarity to the Palestinians. So let's say they were to send troops, I would think that there'd be a very aggressive response to that from the Zionists. And there's even a history of Irish peacekeepers being attacked and harassed by the Israelis. Like there were UN peacekeepers in South Lebanon by the border that took some share rounds from the Zionists. And so, with that being the case, I would think there'd be a very negative reaction. And I don't see Ireland being able to impose itself onto Israel militarily. Not to say that the Irish aren't tough; they absolutely are.
Yeah. To also address a previous point that you made, Fonzie, with regards to AIPAC ruling or occupying American politics, I actually think it's the other way around. I think it's Western imperialism and American politics occupying Israel. I think people need to understand that the reason as to why all these different Western countries and countries in the Gulf are not necessarily fully intervening is not because they are controlled by Israel, but because Israel is doing the dirty job for them. Because you have to understand that to feed into the second point, capitalism creates extermination. The India, Middle East, European economic corridor is supposed to be built. It's kind of like it has been proposed, it has been signed off, and it. Oh wait, did I cut you off, Iskender? Or were you done?
It's okay. You can continue.
Oh, sorry. You can continue.
No, I mean, all I was going to say, and actually on the point about the Gulf states too, and not trying to generalize and say they're all the same, but what I will say is that there are different schools of thought in regards to Islam. I'm not here to turn this into a religious life. But the point is that when it comes to, say, Saudi Arabia, they care more, at least the monarchy, I would argue, cares much more about containing Iran than they do about helping the Palestinians. And so when they're looking at the Middle East and they see Israel and they see, okay, they don't like Israel because, well, there are obviously religious and ethnic ties between Saudi Arabia and Palestine, at least you think so. However, they look at Israel and think, okay, Israel hates Iran, we hate Iran. It's the same reason that you see Saudi Arabia investing so much money in the Phalange Party in Lebanon. It's not because they just love Lebanese Zionists. No, it's because they want to counter Iran's influence in Lebanon. That's why you see Samir Jaja and all these phalangists getting a whole bunch of money and weaponry for their own little private militia in Lebanon in order to counter the influence of Hezbollah, which is sponsored by Iran, has been since its inception. So that being the case, there is that too. And then, of course, you also have the U.S. and its interests. So the U.S. just wants the oil out of the Middle East.
5 subs. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so, and so the U.S., for example, has what I would call a guns for oil trade with Saudi Arabia and with the Emirates. So, I mean, a lot of people don't talk about what happened or what's still happening in Yemen, where the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen led to the unaliving of over 370,000 Yemeni Shias. I mean, it was an absolutely horrendous, I would call it an ethnic cleansing campaign, to be honest with you. And even when China steps in, negotiates a ceasefire between Saudi Arabia and Iran, you have Biden ordering an amphibious warship to boom, along with the Brits too. The UK was part of this as well. Now they're booming Yemen directly. So it's the politics in the Middle East are incredibly messy, for sure. And the U.S., of course, has its hands in all of it, right? The U.S. is actively trying to divide and conquer the Middle East because the U.S. doesn't want the Middle East to unify. Like, this is what Saddam Hussein, for example, was advocating for. He wanted the U.S. to unify. His argument was, hey, I didn't lose Kuwait because my army is weak. He's like, no, the Saudis turned on me. And I mean, that was kind of, that's always how colonial powers have been. They always try to divide and conquer in the regions in which they're extracting resources. It's one of their common tactics. You can see this not just in the Middle East. You can see this sub-Saharan Africa. You can see this about the Americas, and we can go all around the world. The strategy is very transparent.
Right. Yeah. I want to kind of shift gears just for a half a second, because I know we have 2 new people on the panel. We have Sean and we also have Hugo. But I do want to move around to what we were talking about and kind of get into the thought process behind what does rebuilding look like, right? And again, I don't want to monopolize this and stick to just what's happening in Palestine, because it's a huge thing, and so we want to give it its just dues. But I also want to get your thoughts around like how that looks, right? So Sean, I would love to start with you, and I would love to hear your thoughts on. I saw what you put in the chat earlier, and I think you and I have similar thoughts. But I would love to hear what your thoughts are on the ceasefire. But even more so, because this is a conversation that my wife and I were having, and she said this for a long time, and she's been talking about this for a while. And she was like, no matter like when things quote unquote end, it's not going to be the same because of the amount of destruction that has actually occurred. And when you talk about, not only just the actual buildings and the landscape and all this other stuff that was lost, but the actual human life that was lost. I don't, and again, I'm not a student of this type of history to really know, like, with this type of event, if there's ever been a real recovery. So I would love to hear from all of you guys as far as what are your thoughts when it comes to recovery / rebuilding, and if there is a pathway to actually recovering.
Yeah, I'll start with the what I put in the comments. I do want to say before I start that when it comes to the rebuilding, I don't have any, I want to say business, but I'm going to say business for lack of a better term. I don't think I have any business talking about what I think the reconstruction would look like, regardless of my thoughts, because there's people on this panel in itself who would be better spoken at that, especially since they have stake in the area that we're talking about. And I think that goes as well to say any like marginalized group facing any kind of destruction should be the ones to speak on that. So, like, I would concede my time to Iskander and whoever else would have stake in that area. But from what I said in the comments, I said that I don't trust Israel. Period. And as much as I love Alina, I swear to not Alina, Athena, I swear to God, I do. But I just want to say, like, the relief is awesome. The relief is amazing, and celebrating like small victories, that's always important. I think it's just important that we look at the actions of oppressors and how they've been treating things. And the reason why I said that in the comments was simply because of the actions of Israel during ceasefires, not just today, but just in general throughout the years. It's been over 20 years. It's been over 20 years. W chat for reaching the 80% of the goal of the live goal. And there
Sorry
it is.
about that. I know it's loud.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. W chat. For real. Y'all are amazing. It's been over 20 years of ceasefire violations by Israel, just going into Palestine, unaliving people, going into the West Bank, Gaza, unaliving people indiscriminately for no reason whatsoever, other than because they're brown or because they're not Jewish or they're not Zionist, whatever it may be. And so that's just the reason why I said that. I do think like the temporary relief is awesome, but I do think it holds. You know what? Never mind. I'm about to give a critique that I don't think that I have any business giving. So I'm just going to shut up.
That's
Can
fair.
can I just say, I
Go
feel
ahead,
like,
Tina.
yeah. I'm gonna go back to like the statement that I said. There is nobody who knows like Israel better than like Palestinians in general, but also everybody who has been affected by Israel. But also in this situation, like the H group and people in Gaza. And they are very well aware of the history of the of Israel violating ceasefire deals and what it does and how it reacts. And they, I think, are very well equipped to know how to navigate their way around Israel, whether it is militarily or politically as well. And if they are celebrating, like if you saw the footage, like H group members were out about with their whole gear and with their weaponry, celebrating, saying we are here, we're not gone, we're still fighting. And they were celebrating today as well in those videos. And I think like if they are celebrating knowing full well what Israel does because they have experienced a G-side, like I think it's okay to echo their voices. I think it's perfectly fine to echo their voices. And when I'm saying this, I know some people might think I'm being naive or whatever it is. I'm not being naive. I am fully aware of Israel's history of violating peace offerings or proposals or ceasefires and what it has done in the area, what it has done to my people. Israel has airstriked my people as well, Eritrean villages in the 1970s and 80s. So I'm very well aware of what Israel does. But I'm just, again, I'm trying to keep up this optimism because we really, really need morale. We really need to be more optimistic, I think.
Can I say something to you? I just want to say, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think the celebrating, I actually didn't know H group members were celebrating. I saw civilians celebrating.
I'll send you the videos. They were so beautiful. They were
awesome.
out and about in their full gear.
That does change things a bit for me. Learning new information changes shit. But I was just telling you why I was saying what I was saying in the comments. I wasn't trying to say that anyone doesn't understand the history of Israel and their backstabbing measures at all. I wasn't trying to say that at all. I swear to God. I was just trying to say like the reasons why I said what I said and nothing else. There was no judgment on anything else. And I don't think that I have any stake or any business making a commentary any further than that. And other than like me personally, I was skeptical. But learning new information or whatever, it's whatever. I didn't mean to take that.
No, I was just responding to you, babes. I know. But
Yeah.
I'll send you on Discord like all the videos of like age group celebrating as well.
That's lit. I would love to see it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think for me, and you know, thing I've talked to you about it on the back end. And I think for me, the biggest thing just is none, and I don't have the history or the overall knowledge of anyone else on this panel when it comes to this specific topic and the you know what has happened. Of course, I can do my research, but I think for me, the only reason I hesitate and I defer to you, Athena, and I trust you, and I trust your thought process. It's just, golly, I don't trust politicians in any way, shape, or form, and I know that's formed by my understanding of like American politicians and you know even Canadian or British politicians or whatever. But I don't trust politicians, and so for me, I'm just like I'm hopeful. I want everything to be good. I'm waiting for everything to actually happen. But I just don't trust them. And I'm like, we should continue to move forward. And that's just my perspective. And that's why I said earlier, like when everything is when the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and you know, everything actually happens, that's when I feel like I can finally breathe. With that being said, Athena, as well, would you like to actually chime in on the question that I asked? Because I would really like to know the panel's thoughts around possibly rebuilding, right? What that could look like, and you know, oh, is it even possible in some real way, shape, or form?
Um, hmm. I think whether it's possible, um, I do think anything is possible. I don't think that you can bring up the lives that have been lost, of course. The level of grief. Not only we're sitting here talking about the lives that have been lost. We're not
Mhm.
talking about the lives of the people who have been amputated or who have to go to move around with physical or also mental and emotional scars. I mean, how
Oh
many
yeah.
people have? I was
Absolutely.
I was talking to a person from northern Gaza who is still in northern Gaza just like
Mhm.
3 days ago, I think. And I basically asked him like, how are you staying so resilient? Because this person is a person who has refused to leave northern Gaza and said that they're going to stay there. And I just asked him like, so how have you been staying resilient? And he just said, I don't feel anymore. He told me I don't feel anymore. I have no emotions. And I can't have emotions is what he told me. And he told me the only thing that is pushing him to stay resilient is that he's a very stubborn person and he feels like if life is being stubborn with him, he's trying to out stubborn life.
Mm.
Right? So um that level of like trauma, you can't even call it PTSD because it's still happening, right? So we haven't even begun to speak about these things. Is it something that has been possible in the past? Um, i- yes, in other cases, it has been possible.
Mhm.
Um, but with regards to Gaza right now, I think this is a question that maybe Gazans could best answer. I think how it's supposed to be rebuilt, what action should be undertaken. This is something that Palestinians should be responding to. This
Right.
is something that people in Gaza, specifically, especially when it comes to Gaza, should be responding to as well. And I'd love to hear their thoughts. I don't think I'm way too privileged, I think, to even be sitting here and trying to um, dictate or articulate my opinion on how it should be rebuilt when I didn't have to go through a genocide, and nor am I Palestinian.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fair.
Before, because I do want to concede all of my time to Palestinians as well,
Mhm.
but I do just want to ask Athena one quick thing if I can. And what other, just for my own brain, because I'm having a hard time racking. In what other situation was this kind of rebuilding possible? Just like throughout history.
And that's the thing that I was thinking as well. Like, I would love to know if there's even
Not
a
a
point of
challenge.
reference like that.
Yeah, I'm not
Oh,
trying to
cool.
challenge either. I'm dead ass asking
Yeah,
because
yeah.
in my own brain, I'm like, I can't even imagine.
Right. And that's what I was thinking too.
Have y'all ever, so I'm gonna be biased. I'm gonna talk about Eritrea again. Have y'all ever seen footage out of Eritrea during the Liberation War and the G side? This was something I never kind of fully understood, even though my mother, every time she saw footage out of Gaza, she always told me, "Oh, this reminds me of my youth," is what she told me. I didn't quite understand it until I actually saw video footage of the airstrikes, of the amount of damage. And I think ever since Eritrea has become a state in 1993, has it been fully rebuilt yet? No. But a lot of the areas have gotten rebuilt, even though the whole country was completely decimated, except for the capital city. So I think in that case, this was something that was possible, even though the trauma is still carried on by the people. That trauma is never going to go away. Like that trauma, I don't think, generational trauma, that is not going to go away for the next like I think it takes generational trauma about 7 generations to kind of like be fully processed. But when you're talking about nation building and that I have seen, for example, even within Germany, for example, Germany was completely destroyed during World War II as well. So those are the 2 areas I think about, Eritrea and Germany as well. But the trauma, I don't think the trauma will ever go away.
Well, and you know, when you said that, I didn't even think about that piece, but you're absolutely right. When you said it earlier, it made me think about like when the nukes were dropped in Japan, and how that was like generational trauma that continued for a long time. And then I think about like
To this day.
yeah, exactly. But then also even further back, I mean, I know a lot of people like to talk about, oh, you know, you weren't involved in slavery, blah blah blah. But there's still trauma that lasts from slavery, and so I couldn't imagine the type of effect that's going to have. But Alex, Fonzie, would either one of you like to speak on it?
I mean, for me, like I have no business in suggesting how they should rebuild because I'm not Palestinian either. But the one thing I did want to bring up is the one way that this G side is like different. Obviously, I'm not saying, oh, this is where, like, I'm not trying to compare it like into other G sides in that sense, but I'm saying like the technology advanced. Like obviously now, because it's what 2025 now there's new drones, there's new technology, and the people of Gaza were basically test in the eyes of the colonialists. They were test like subjects for these new advanced technologies that can just cause destruction while being silent. Heard someone from West Bank a few weeks ago was telling me how they have new drones. Doesn't make any sounds. Just sneaks up on you and unalives people. Like, different types of tactics that were used. They would use drones to play baby sounds to lure people out in the middle of the streets and unalive them. Different psychological tactics and different new pew pews, new types of boom booms, new types of drones. That was one thing that the people of Gaza has witnessed. Technology that hasn't been used before now being used on them all of a sudden. They were like, not even us, like the regular civilians knew about it, because they weren't used as much in the previous wars, but now all of a sudden they're being used on them. I feel like that is a huge like difference, in what was being made.
Thank you for that point, Alex.
I agree with the rest of the panel in terms of telling the Palestinians what they should do. I don't think I have any position to do that. I'm Lebanese. I'm not Palestinian. However, I can certainly speak to my own community for a second. I'm referring to the U.S. in that when it came to, and Athena kind of touched on it when she mentioned post World War II Germany. The U.S., for example, had the Marshall Plan. So the U.S., I forget exactly how much money it was. It was Eisenhower who concocted it, if you will. And anyway, it was throughout much of Europe to help Europe. It was partly, of course, to kind of win over Europe and counter the influence of the Soviet Union. But it was also to help rebuild and rebuild roads that were destroyed, hospitals, schools, all sorts of stuff. And what I'm saying is, really, the West has made such a mess out of, well, I would say the Middle East in general, but certainly Palestine. So my argument is that the West, at the very least, owes, I think for every dollar that the United States has given to the Zionists who waged the genocide, they owe at least that. In fact, I'd argue they owe all of that money to the Palestinians plus interest for 75 years worth of hell.
Alex, you think the United States is actually going to do it?
Oh, I mean, I'm speaking again. This is like
I
a
get
world
what you're
of
saying.
Unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah,
but I'm saying, well,
and I completely agree with you. But like, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't even mean to cut you off. I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. And no, Sean, I am Lebanese, so I mean Lebanon is part of the Levant, so you're not wrong. I'm just not Palestinian.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. I don't like to tell Palestinians what to do. I mean, Lebanon, I can speak to that. I can't tell the Palestinians what they should or shouldn't do, though. I don't think that's appropriate even for me to tell them, you should do this, you should that. I'm just calling out the West, having served as country uniform. I have every right to criticize it when it does horrible shit. Absolutely. In fact, if anyone should be calling out, like if we all swear an oath to the Constitution, we all swear to abide by the Geneva Conventions. I mean, when it came to like Trump trying to politicize the military, last time I'd turn this into U.S. politics, but the point that I'm making is there has to be a stopgap somewhere. And so I'd argue that I have every right to call it my own country. And yeah, like you're over here like laughing when I'm mentioning the U.S. actually, having a Marshall Plan in Palestine. And it's like, and the thing is, yeah, it does sound like a joke. It sounds ridiculous. Like, oh wow, the colonial empire that facilitated the genocide is now going to be philanthropic. I mean, I'm of course speaking in very normative terms here. But I'm saying that is the reason these atrocities continue to happen. It is because the West continues to perpetuate this crap for the sake of corporate interest. And going to Fonzie's point, one of the main, I argue there's a trifecta that dictates U.S. support to the Zionists. Part of it is the religious lobby. So you've got evangelical redneck morons, and namely concentrated in the Bible Belt, the Deep South, who want a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan Jesus to come back and unalive everybody who doesn't worship him, which would include Jewish people. So they are in fact anti-Semites. The Confederate flag-waving, fat-bellied dumbasses who think that slavery had nothing to do with the Civil War. They're the same people who support Israel. So there's that. I've got a lot of hate to these people. I do. But anyway, I spent a lot of time down south. I lived in Virginia and North Carolina.
I'm from the South. I know exactly what you're talking about. Listen, exactly, you just said a word.
But on top of that, there's the military-industrial complex, which I want to touch on, because Fonzie is exactly correct. They are testing drones, they're testing missile systems, because they want to see. I mean, you can, and I'm not an engineer, so I don't know exactly what all the specs are. We say, oh, the boom boom weighs this much. It has, we think it has this much payload delivery, but you have to actually kind of test it on live targets to see just how effective it is or isn't. If it malfunctions or doesn't malfunction, you have to test for its bugs, and there's only one way to find that out. So it's not even just the Palestinians. I'd argue that Ukraine has largely been used as a testing ground as well. Rather than look for any sort of negotiation between Putin and the Ukrainians, the West has, I don't want to shift gears into this too much. I want to stay on the topic of Palestine. I'm just saying on the topic of the MIC, the military-industrial complex, they look for opportunities to test their weapons. Ukraine is one example. Afghanistan was another example. Iraq was definitely an example. Libya certainly was. And again, we can go all around the world. Palestine, unfortunately, is no exception to that rule. And I've got pictured here, and I actually want to talk about this later, about education and how I think that, at least in the context of the U.S., I can't speak for other countries, but certainly in the U.S., I'd argue that education in the U.S. has largely been dictated in such a way to control people and to kind of create a narrative. Like, for example, if we're talking about World War II, there's this narrative of the U.S. being, like the U.S., they were the good guys who came in there and stopped the Nazis and Imperial Japan and fascist Italy. Yeah. But then we don't talk about, FDR mass incarcerated Japanese Americans, and the U.S. occupied and colonized Hawaii and Puerto Rico, and had colonized Cuba, and had occupied Honduras and Nicaragua, and was lynching African Americans in trees. And these same people that the U.S. colonized and plundered still took up arms and fought for an empire that hated them in the worst kind of way. Like, we don't talk about the H-class that the U.S. had actively been waging against Native Americans either. For 300 years preceding World War. So that's kind of another point that I want to get to. But and talk about, like I talked about a bit earlier, right? General David Shoup. I hope every American knows about him because he is like the poster child for what's wrong with U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah.
And the military-industrial complex, 100% is the culprit of this. And a lot of retired generals go work for these companies, like Joseph Dunford, who's of Irish ancestry, which blows my mind. He's a Zionist, and it's like, dude, like, how can you, of all people, be a Zionist? Like, he's a board member of Lockheed Martin, which funnels aircrafts and missile systems to the Zionists to use on Palestinian children. And then they sit there and say, oh, look, we tested. These are battle-tested aircrafts. This is a battle-tested missile system. And then they'll try to pitch and sell this to some other war criminal. Like, they might take these weapons and sell them down to the M23 in Rwanda or to the Emirates, as they funnel those weapons to the Rapid Support Forces in Sudan, which are waging a genocide there. So it's never about humanitarianism. It's never about the Geneva Conventions, right from wrong. No, it's about who can make money at the end of the day. And it's not like that money goes to any of us. It doesn't. It goes to a handful of politicians and board members, and some of it might trickle down to the employees, and that's it.
No, nothing
but
trickles down.
Trickle down. Like, I don't call it supply side. I call it trickle down. Like you're taking a piss. Anyway, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the millionaires and billionaires pissing on us all, pissing on the global south.
Yeah.
And anyway, Athena, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say, when it came to weapons being tested, I think it's very important not to fully exceptionalize horrific atrocities that we are witnessing in the global south today, but instead to view them as a pattern of behavior. This is a pattern of behavior that has existed for decades, for centuries, with regards to how the imperial core has been violently engaging with the global south. For example, Germany, which today is one of the second largest exporters of weapons to Israel, supporting the Palestine, in the early 1900s, specifically 1904 till 1908, I think, when it was G-siding the Nama and Herero people in Namibia, it was experimenting with poison gas and chemical agents to exterminate these populations, to see how poison gas and chemical agents would affect them. You had the British in India during also the early 1900s, where they actively tested chemical weapons, including tear gas, on Indian civilians. You also had the British in Sudan, for example, specifically during the Battle of Omdurman, where they tested Maxim machine guns on Sudanese fighters, where they were able to slaughter thousands in an asymmetrical conflict, basically. You had the French in Algeria, who were using advanced explosives and incendiary weapons to be able to exterminate entire villages while they were testing these weapons on them. You also had the French in the 1960s testing or conducting nuclear tests in the Algerian Sahara, that exposed all of these local populations and that whole environment to radiation, which communities near those test sites are still suffering from the long-term health effects until today. I can go on and on with the Marshall Islands, with the Belgians and Congo. So this is a pattern of behavior. Apartheid South Africa as well. What was that one thing? It was called Power Coast, or what was it called? Something Coast. That whole bioweapons test program in South Africa that was developed to sterilize Black South African people. So this is a pattern of behavior where we are seeing colonial empires just having full kind of disregard for Black and brown life, especially in the global South, and just testing weapons on them. So when we are talking about what is happening in Palestine, what is happening in Congo, what is happening in Sudan, the current G-sides that are happening, it's incredibly important not to exceptionalize them, but to understand that they fit in a bigger picture of how generally Black and brown bodies in general, and also specifically the global South, is treated at the hands of colonialism.
And Iskander, you can add to my point and
Hold on.
correct me.
I'm sorry. Let me hop in just for a second because I want to take an opportunity to do this. And I hate to break up the flow of the actual conversation. I promise you I'm going to let you guys get back to it, but I would be remiss if I didn't say this to anyone that's listening, the people that are watching, especially because the time is starting to tick by. I want to remind everybody that's watching right now that this is the third night of us covering this topic, and this is the last night of us covering this topic. So we're not only just here talking about the different G-sides that are happening around the world, the impacts that they have, but we're doing something special. We are fundraising to help support these people who were affected by these G-sides. So guys, there's a couple of ways that you can help, and we really need your help. We need you tapping the screen and sharing the live. Those things are free. I need you guys tapping. The likes have moved so slow. We're not even at 100,000 likes. We have 144 people here, and we haven't even hit 100,000 likes. So we need everybody tapping the screen. Let's get the likes up. Let's get the shares up. And also, let's get the likes up. Let's get the shares up. That helps push us out to the FYP. That's super important because that gets more people in here. Can we please move the likes? Can we get those up to 100,000 likes? Also, if you have not sent your daily heart me, it's only one coin. It's one coin. That helps boost the live as well. If you go to the top of the screen, there's a little orange heart. If you actually click that little orange heart, it's one coin and it will help boost the live. We also have our daily gift goals. Right now, it's the high bears. If we can knock that out, the more we actually knock out those daily gifts, it helps boost the live. Now, not only does that help boost the live, but any and every all the monies made from any donation is going to be donated to these causes, right? So anything that you actually gift, any monies made off of any gifts will be donated. With that being said, you can actually donate directly yourself. You can follow either one of these links. There's 3 links here on the screen, but they're also running in the poll. You can actually get that information and donate directly if you would like. But also, last but not least, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all of my pay links are in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks 24. Santana Speaks 24. If you actually donate there, not only will I read out a message and thank you for your donation, but all the money that you are donating, we are donating that money to help support these people that were affected by that are being affected by these G-sides. And my wife and I, over these 3 nights, we are taking any and everything that you guys donate and we're matching it. So we're going to take the total sum of all 3 nights and we're going to match it. This is the last night. This is the last opportunity. The time is starting to kind of tick down, and I would be remiss if I didn't continue to actually drive this point home. Guys, we are in such a privileged place, like us being here and being on TikTok and actually being able to talk about these things that are happening and not actually have to live through these things that are happening at this moment. We are in a place of privilege, and it is our responsibility to actually do what we can to help those people. And that's through educating ourselves, educating others, and reaching out when we can. So if you can, please donate. Santana Speaks 24, Santana Speaks 24. If you can, please donate. If you want to donate directly, again, you can. If you have gifts, I mean, maybe some people like to go around to other panels and you get gifted and you get coins. You can cash those coins in and you can gift as well. Or at the very least, tapping the screen and sharing the live. Those 2 things are free and they help a lot as well. So please consider doing your part. Consider helping out. Any and everything, no matter what you do, nothing is too small. We appreciate any and everything that you can do. Also, W's in the chat from Melissa. Melissa sent a $20 Cash App donation. Again, this money will be donated to help those people that are affected by different G-sides all around the world. It means so much. Thank you so much for that donation, Melissa. I'm sorry, Fonzie, I apologize for interrupting. I just had to get that off. The floor is yours.
No, it's all good. I was just gonna ask Iskander, since like you've had experience like with in the military, right? The type of boom booms that they used on the Palestinians, to be specific, weren't they the same type of boom booms that they used to destroy the mountains when they were in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, so they were using primarily GBU-31 and GBU-39 munitions. So a GBU-39 munition's about 250 pounds, and it's got a casualty radius of over 400 meters. So, the round lands. The explosion itself is about 15 meters in size, but then the shrapnel that flies off of the round, when the round actually lands, it's made of lead. It lands, and you have lead shrapnel that flies in a million different directions. And it's hot, and it's very fast. And so anyway, it hits somebody, it's meant to penetrate skin, can rip somebody apart. It can also, if it's dropped in an urban area, it can take out buildings, and so you have rubble that falls on people, and so that can take people out as well. If, for example, a building falls on somebody, it's going to take them out, especially if it's a small person. And in the case of a GBU-31 munition, that's a 2,000-pound joint direct attack munition that's designed for neutralizing a tank or taking out an amphibious warship. And they're using those munitions on soft targets. So when you see pictures of enormous craters in the ground, I mean, what the Israelis have done is even worse, actually much worse than what the U.S. did in Afghanistan, which is saying something. Because at least in the context of Afghanistan, you had mountains. The T-band had plenty of space to kind of run and hide, whereas in this case, you've got people that are trapped, 2.3 million people, and only 140 square miles of real estate. And so, other than the tunnels, they didn't have anywhere to go. And in the case of the refugees, I mean, they're stuck there in tents. They have no cover, and I mean, all it takes, like, for example, you see them clamoring for flour, right? The flour massacre, if you remember that, where they're clamoring for flour and then they drop a JDAM on them as they're clamoring to try to get food. So very sadistic, and it's not like they don't know any better. They do know better. I mean, they could have used CSOs, critical skills operators, to selectively target individual insurgents, but they deliberately refused to do that because that wasn't consistent with what they were attempting to accomplish, and that was the colonization of the Gaza Strip, essentially.
Same boom booms that they used on tents. And the one thing that also scares me is, like, they say 50,000.
Just an FYI, not to interrupt, I wanted Alex to be able to finish his point, but Sean wanted to say something before they had to take off, so I didn't want to keep going back and forth too much before we let Sean in. Just
no, they can finish.
Okay. I didn't know if you were like had a time limit before you had to go, and I just didn't want to leave you hanging.
I appreciate you. It's not really a time limit. I do have an obligation, but they can finish. This is perfectly fine.
Yeah. I won't take too long to finish. Okay. I was just gonna say, with the boom booms and like all the advanced weaponry that they've been using, and like they've been saying, oh, the number is at 50,000. They've been saying that it's been stuck at that for the last 4 or 5 months. But what was it? The Lancet has reported that the deaths have been 200,000, and that's only been accounted for the bodies that they found. But what about the bodies that have been disintegrated completely, destroyed by the bulldozers? As Iskander described the boom booms earlier, right? It could completely disintegrate you if it lands on you. Like my fear is the number is a lot more than what they're reporting, and I feel like for a lot of the numbers and the people unalive, we might not even figure out like the real figure and the real number of the amount of people unalive, because of bodies being disintegrated and, the Zionists destroying their bodies under bulldozers and getting rid of the bodies. I feel like we might never ever figure out the real number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so actually, how this before we respond to that, if Sean would like to make any closing comments, because I can talk about this for hours. I don't want to waste anyone's time, especially for someone who has to go.
I don't think it's a waste at all. I just didn't want to change the subject. I wanted y'all to be able to finish what you were talking about, because the only thing I was going to talk about was when it comes to Reconstruction, the only commentary that I feel suited to give would be that, like, the asking of, like, myself, like, I'm an American citizen, but I am like against the United States in every way, to the point where I want to dismantle it, and looking towards like liberation, especially for me, like Black liberation, being intersectional, meaning that when Black people are free, everybody needs to be free as well, or else that oppression is just going to be bestowed either upon a different group or find its way back to Black people.
Yep.
The question that needs to be asked, at least for me, when talking about liberation, is what will it take to reconstruct? And that looks like, for me at least, when I ask about reconstruction of Black people, I talk about generational trauma a lot. And I would ask Palestinians, like whenever I get the chance, and I do ask Palestinians whenever I get the chance, like what they believe it would take to actually reconstruct not just the buildings, but Palestinians themselves. Because generational trauma is a son of a bitch. And if you don't deal with it, it will cause forever changes and behavioral actions. Not that they're like bad or anything or whatever, but they do echo oppressions. And as long as that oppression is being echoed, you are not liberated. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And so, like as a Black person, Black nationalist here, Pan-Africanist, looking to liberate all people, I would just ask like Palestinians, like what it would take in order to rebuild and what they would need from us as Black people.
Yeah, no, I think you like really hammered home a lot of different points, and I think that's the thing that I really I've gotten from, and I appreciate everyone on the panel actually. I appreciate everyone on the panel actually bringing that perspective and that levity, right? Because it's easy for anyone to say, well, I think the Palestinians should do this, and I think they should do that, and this is how they should, conduct themselves. But from top down, everyone on this panel has been really concise and consistent with the message as far as, um, letting them lead and letting them actually dictate to us as far as what support looks like, what is help look like, and actually, you know, trying to actually restore themselves, what that looks like. So I think that is an amazing point to be made, and something that I'm really, again, I'm super interested to see what happens, because I mean, again, to my knowledge, I can't think of any instance that we've seen anything like this before. And so I don't know if there's a real track record of how they move forward from this point. So yeah, that's an amazing point. Thank you so much, Sean.
Appreciate you having me. I love everybody on the panel. I love y'all so much.
Love you more.
Athena, thank you for the videos. I'm going to hop down. Thank y'all for letting me speak.
Absolutely, absolutely. Athena, I
Oh,
wanted to come back. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, love you, Sean.
You have a good one. Stay safe, brother.
Athena, I wanted to come back to you because I know you haven't said anything for a while, and I know we were having a conversation with Fonzie and Alex, and we'll give them the floor to continue moving forward with the overarching conversation as well. But I wanted to check in with you and see, is there anything you wanted to add, anywhere you would like to go, especially because we're now moving into like the final hour, right? The final hour of Late Nights with Santana, and I would really love to hear from you more as well about like how do we educate ourselves better, right? Because I feel like that's what this week has been about. It's been about educating, and it's been about helping. But I think a lot of people might at times take a step back and think like, I there's so much going on, or I have so much going on in my world. I don't know. I don't have time for this, or I can't figure out how to get involved, or what recommendations do you have for people who are trying to educate themselves more, and at the very least lend some type of helping hand?
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's a good question. I think firstly, what is incredibly important, in my opinion, is not to exceptionalize. I mentioned this before. What is happening currently, whether it is in Palestine, whether it is in Sudan, whether it is in Congo as well. I mean, I read that excerpt from that book, Cobalt Red. And actually, to answer your question, I do want to read an excerpt from that book as well, if that's okay with you.
Listen, what have been saying all this week?
Yeah, true.
It's your
True.
show. It's your show.
Exactly. Okay. So, yeah. The severity of harm being caused by cobalt mining is sadly not a new experience for the people of the Congo. Centuries of European slave trading, beginning in the early 1500s, caused irreparable injury to the native population, culminating in colonization by King Leopold II, who set the table for the exploitation that continues to this day. The descriptions of Leopold's regime remain disturbingly applicable to the modern Congo. Joseph Conrad immortalized the evil of Leopold's Congo's Free State in Heart of Darkness in 1898 with 4 words: the horror, the horror. He subsequently described the Congo Free State as the vilest scramble for loot that ever disfigured the history of human conscience, and a land in which ruthless, systematic cruelty towards the blacks is the basis of administration. The year after Heart of Darkness was published, the first known person to walk the length of Africa from the Cape to Cairo, E.S. Grogan, described Leopold's territory as a vampire growth. In the Casement Report in 1904, Roger Casement, British consul to the Congo Free State, described the colony as a veritable hell on earth. Casement's ally in bringing an end to Leopold's regime, E.D. Morel, wrote that the Congo Free State was a perfected system of oppression accompanied by unimaginable barbarities and responsible for the vast destruction of human life. Every one of these descriptions equally conveys conditions in the cobalt mining provinces today. Spend a short time watching the filth-caked children of the Katanga region scrounge at the earth for cobalt, and you would be unable to determine whether you were working for the benefit of Leopold or a tech company. So the reason as to why I bring this up is, again, to go back to what I had initially said, this is a pattern of behavior. The only reason people think what we are witnessing today is new is because there are cameras. The footage coming out of these areas is much more accessible to the average person. But just because it's accessible to the average person does not necessarily mean that what is being done today is something that is, or the treatment of people in the global south is somehow incredibly new now. And I think the danger of exceptionalizing these situations, in a way, opens up the door for more dehumanization of the victim, because it opens up the victim to being held responsible for what is happening to them. So what do I mean by that? For example, if we pretend like systemic racism is only unique to America, you have right-wingers, you have people who oppose its existence, argue then, oh, this is happening to African Americans because African Americans are lazy, because African Americans come from single-parent households, because African Americans don't get educated, all these things that Ben Shabibo or Candace Owens or whoever espouse, right? But the moment you widen up the scope and you make people realize that Black people are being subjected to systemic racism on a global scale, you cannot blame the victim, because it's impossible to try to say, oh, Black people on a global scale are just responsible for what's happening to them, right? And that's the same thing to what's happening in Palestine and Congo, in Sudan, is that if you widen the scope and illustrate that this is a pattern of behavior, and the imperial core has always been doing this since the European age of expansion, you make people realize that the victims of this barbaric colonial violence are not to blame. They have done absolutely nothing to warrant this treatment, because this treatment has existed for centuries, and these tactics and these talking points have been literally used, regurgitated on other populations of people. People who are aware about what's happening in Palestine, for example, right? They have heard the talking point of Palestinian identity not existing, Palestinian children being future T's, Like these are excuses that are used, right? Palestine doesn't have a history or a culture. All these talking points are talking points that were also used against Eritrea. So when Eritreans were being genocided, they were also accused of not having an identity, also accused of not having a history and culture. Eritrean children were considered to be future rebels, right? And that's why there was a justification to target them as well. So it kind of like it puts into perspective again that these tactics are are the same or very similar, that the victim is the one that changes. The colonial entity changes and the victim changes, but the tactics that they use are very similar or almost the same, actually. So I think, number one, the most important thing is not to exceptionalize this. Number two, watch documentaries. Listen to audiobooks. If you can't read, you can listen to an audiobook while you're cooking. You can listen to an audiobook while you're taking public transportation or in your car, driving, whatever it is. Try to read up on these things. Try to find different avenues. If an audiobook is not good for you, documentaries. There are such amazing video essays and documentaries that are full of information. And as to why you should do it when you're busy with life, I think because it's our duty.
Yep.
It's our duty to create a productive and humane society for all, a just society for all. Because anytime I sat at school and I was learning about the Holocaust and I was learning about previous G-sides, and I was wondering to myself, what were people doing back then? Why didn't they do anything? It's the same thing that people are doing today, during slavery, during apartheid, during Jim Crow. If whatever you are doing today, like right now, is what you would have done during those periods of time as well, right? So it is our duty to do something right, to stand by what's right, to stand for the oppressed. And also, one day, you're going to become an ancestor.
Yep.
And are you going to be an ancestor that people are going to be proud of? Or are your future descendants going to be ashamed of you?
That's a good point. That is an amazing point, and not to go too far off and get into that, but I think that's one reason why America, they don't want to, quote unquote, teach critical race theory or update books. They're looking to ban books is because a lot of people who are in power and in certain positions know that now if those history books were updated, then certain people who were on the wrong side of history, and they place them in those books, it's going to be their grandparents, and that's a thing. They don't want people to know their dark history of their grandparents, and so that's a whole thing. With that being said, I know we got Sarah and Izzy that just joined the panel. How are you guys? Let me start with Sarah. Sarah, I know you were trying to hop on the panel earlier. Sarah, what did you want to add to the conversation?
I just wanted to add, I heard you guys talk about, do you think that T groups would exist if Black and Browns were labeled equal to everyone else? And I actually have a difference of opinion. I think that they would still be around. They would just find different targets. I feel like they're so rooted in terrorizing and evil. I feel like they feel like that's their purpose in life, so they would have to find something, some religious group, some I don't know how to explain it. Some race, some political belief. Like, I feel like that they try to find something that is out of the ordinary and target them because it doesn't make sense to them, and they want to rid it of not what their normal is. I mean, with the triple K, I think that they all, from everything that I've known about them, it's not, I feel like it's only the color of our skin because their ancestors were taught that we are not the same, that being a different color is gross. And I just feel like the different T groups they're rooted so much in not normal ways that they have to find something or someone to take out their anger on. I feel like I'm not explaining this as great as I want to.
Okay. Well, let's do this. And hey, Buzzy, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hello.
What are you doing up?
I was doing some reading and research. I have been busy, being in love, being a student, all these things. And I was doing my weekly check-in, if you will, for what's happening with the world. So I'm not inundated daily. Sometimes I just let it build up, and then I go and soak it all in. Very, very interesting. Realizing, well, I kind of knew this, but then seeing it in action is crazy. I guess in Biden's address, he talked about his concern of an oligarchy. And unfortunately, what is harrowing is the amount of adults that don't know what oligarchy means.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't know a lot of things. Period. um, let's do this. I want to come to Izzy, but I wanted to give. I didn't know if anyone wanted to kind of speak on what Sarah just said.
Oh, definitely.
Go ahead.
So, Sarah, why do you think the Triple K was not recognized as a T organization then?
I'm not sure.
Do you think they terrorized groups of people?
Absolutely.
Do you think they terrorized groups of people for a certain agenda, like political agenda that they had?
No.
Really? You don't think that the Triple K actively terrorized Black and brown communities, but specifically Black people in America, to continue upholding white supremacy?
No, I do believe in that. Totally.
Okay, so why weren't they categorized as a T organization, but a person like Nelson Mandela was categorized as a T?
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole point of it, right? That's the whole point of what I was saying. The reason as to why the KKK, this is just I'm speaking for myself, right? I'm just gonna say this is because they were what, right? When what people engage in armed struggle, it isn't very often that they're considered T's. Instead, they're celebrated. I mean, people celebrated Ukrainians, saying, look at these brave Ukrainians trying to defend their country. And the same thing with the Triple K. Their harm, or the harm that they caused, was largely downplayed, and people didn't focus on them because they were white. But a person like Nelson Mandela, who was literally just defending himself and his country and his people from an apartheid system, was considered to be a T up until like 2008 or 2013. That alone goes to show you that Black and brown bodies are not being perceived equal, because white people are allowed to resist and engage in armed struggle in the name of self-defense. I mean, Israel is literally engaging in supposed self-defense. It's defending itself into other countries, right? And that's still allowed. But had, let's say, Palestinians, do you think had Palestinians done the same things that Israel is doing to to Syria, to Iraq, to Yemen, to Palestine, to Lebanon, that people would have made all of these excuses for them?
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
If the H group had gone into Israel and unalived like 17,000 children, do you think people would be making excuses for Israel, for the H group?
Yeah, I think people.
You think people would be making excuses for the H group if they unalived 17,000 Israeli children?
No.
Yeah. But people are still making excuses for Israel. So much excuses that like Western countries are still actively funding it, even though it unalived 17,000 children, Palestinian children, more, at least 17,000 Palestinian children. So that is because people view, number one, certain lives as grievable. So if a certain life is lost, and if it's not black and brown, this is a grievable life. Therefore, we should cherish it and value it and mourn it. Whereas other lives are not really as grievable because they're not valued. And then second of all, because they're not valued and because their life is not grievable, they don't have a right to defend themselves.
Athena, do you mind if I dig deeper in your point?
Of course.
Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's use St. Augustine. So, St. Augustine is the oldest living city, right? It's considered the oldest living city in the United States of America. Do you know why people hold significance to St. Augustine?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend anybody.
I'm not offended. I'm just digging deeper. Oh. So for the audience, people hold significance to St. Augustine because of the history of the Spaniards that is in St. Augustine. The fort is still in St. Augustine. It's called Castillo San de Marcos. That is still down in St. Augustine. All of these historic relics still exist. The cathedrals, Henry Flagler's home is now a college. All of these original buildings are still there, repurposed into others in some cases, but still existent. The streets are still tiny, the homes are still close together. All of these structures still exist. They talk about the Spanish history, but what they don't talk about is the town in St. Augustine known as Lincolnville, which is a historically black town. What they don't tell you is about the Civil Rights Museum that is in St. Augustine. And what they don't tell you is about how Dr. Martin Luther King marched through St. Augustine and had a sermon at one of the churches in St. Augustine, where the structure of that church still exists. What they don't talk about is how the Catholic Church that they show off to be pretty and historic on the main streets was once the Black people's church. And then they took it from Black people and gave them the church on the back streets that they are still preserving for history, but they've allowed to kind of fall apart. Yes, it has its signs and its plaques to tell you its significance. Yes, it is the church that Dr. King spoke in. It still exists, but it doesn't get the respect and the grace that the Spaniards get. Why? Because the closer you are to my complexion, the less worthy you are of preservation and talking about, because the darker you get, the more volatile history gets.
And this is in Spain, as you were saying, right? St. Augustine.
No, St. Augustine is in Florida.
Oh, in Florida. Okay, but this is after the Spaniards conquered it, right? What you're saying?
Yes, Castillo San de Marcos is still there. The oldest living city exists. The smallest road is down there, Treasury Road. All of these things coexist in this space. There is a road in St. Augustine. I think it's called Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. You can walk down it. I actually just took someone down there a couple days ago. You can walk down there. You can see the plaques for civil rights. You can see the buildings. but they are not as clean, they are not as preserved as the buildings about the Spaniards and as the buildings about Catholic history. They're not as shown off, if you will.
Hmm. I was asking that question because I was about to make a connection with after the Spanish Armada, right after they conquered Spain. We all know that Granada and Spain used to be called Al Andalus. They took all the mosques, they destroyed it, and they replaced it with churches. But when what was it, Constantinople, Istanbul was taken, churches there are still preserved. As you were saying earlier, right? The people of color, they get their relics destroyed. They don't get the recognition they deserve. But whenever the colonizers conquer everything, they always preserve it. And then I brought up Istanbul, right? Like when the Ottomans took it over, they could have destroyed all the churches and everything, but no, they still preserved and kept it safe.
I think it's true, and it's true that uh, things are sometimes insidious. But if you think about it and you build the bridges of connection, you'll see how they converge together. Unfortunately, the reason why those histories are not talked about and not shared is because of the violence that occurred to people that are on the darker side of the spectrum. And nobody wants to have to look their ancestors in the mirror
Mm,
because it makes them feel something.
mm,
That's the issue with what we have with the laws in Florida that states that if you are in a collegiate class and you're talking about something that you deem as offensive, that class can stop or be stopped. It happened in Florida at a college. A dual enrollment student, for people that don't know what dual enrollment is, a dual enrollment student is someone that is in high school but also takes collegiate classes
mm-hmm,
in the guise of graduating from high school with their AA degree.
mm-hmm.
They were in a history class in college. They were talking about Black history. And because of the law, they stated they felt uncomfortable and they stopped the class. It's not that it's not that the information was incorrect, is that it made them feel something. And under the guise of what they are proclaiming as white guilt, instead of facing the facts of what happened, they don't want to talk about it. But they'll talk about what happened to someone of a lighter hue, as long as it has less violence and comes with a happy ending, right?
Governments try to hide these things because they fear that if the truth leaks out, at least from my deduction from me studying history, anytime the truth leaks out of all the atrocities, the current government is overthrown and replaced, and they don't want another revolt because then people realize the government, they're selfish. They're doing all these things, they care less about us. They don't want to lose their position of power. They don't want to get overthrown, so that's why they suppress said information
Yeah,
because
Which
they
is
don't
why
want
it is
atrocities.
concerning.
yeah.
Which is why what's happening now is concerning in America. It all ties together. The fact that you're looking at a bunch of adults that don't understand what oligarchy means, and you have a lot of history laid out in front of us that tells us what happens when small groups of people with wealth and access take power. And I don't know why the person that was up here dropped. You didn't say
Well,
anything offensive.
yeah, no, and so I think that she might have stepped away. I know she said that, but I also I don't know if and just kind of level set and refocus because I know we're getting kind of into the weeds as far as the United States. And I said this earlier. I want to make sure I understand what's happening here and everything along those lines. But the focus of this live, specifically this week with Late Nights with Santana, is really stowing our privilege as far as even what we have in the United States, which isn't great, right? But actually focusing on the other mass extinctions that are happening all around the world, the genocides that are happening all around the world, and those different things that and how can we be educated of those, and also how can we help those people? So I think I don't know if there was just a whole shift because there was a conversation that kind of popped in place when we were talking about like T groups, and we were talking about the H group, and I think the opinion was shared from there, and then we just kind of went down a rabbit hole. But I wanted to kind of bring us back, especially because we are just about half an hour away. I know I don't have my counter up on the screen. That's because of the actual way that we're streaming tonight. But I want to just one refocus, but two, say this again one more time, guys. If you have not donated, please, 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 please consider donating. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. All of my pay links are in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks 24. Santana Speaks 24. Not only are you supporting the live, but what we are doing with the money that we collect, every single penny that we collected, not only tonight, but over these 3 nights, it's going to be donated to those people who are directly affected by these different G sides all around the world. So anything that you can donate, please, please, please consider donating. And with that being said, after these 3 nights, my wife and I will match dollar for dollar, cent for cent, everything that any of you guys do. We're going to match that total donation over the 3 nights, and we're going to donate that. Also, any money that is collected from any gifts. So anytime you gift at all, the funds that we receive from the money, that's going to be donated as well. And last but not least, if you want to donate directly, you can always donate directly at any of these links. We also have the links running in the poll. You can grab that information there, but please, please, please just consider donating. And you can do the free things as well, right? Tap the screen, share the live. That helps boost the live. That helps get more people in here. But that is the focus. That's where we've been for these last 3 nights, and that's where I really want to make sure that we harp in, and especially because we're limited on time for the rest of this evening. I want to make sure we really focus on that topic. With that being said, I do want to come to Izzy, because Izzy, you have not had an opportunity to speak. I wanted to give you the floor.
So I'll be completely honest here. I definitely misunderstood. I haven't been in here the whole night tonight, and I came in at the end of last night. I do want to say I think I definitely misunderstood the point of what was being discussed. I know last night was going a lot into communism versus capitalism.
Yeah, that rolled down a whole different
and
rabbit
so
hole.
that was I was coming up mostly to address a lot of what was said during that entire thing. Also, there was again tonight. Most of what I've heard has been more so in regards to the United States. So I don't really have much to add to this. Not that I feel qualified to speak on, at least. So I am going to drop down. But I appreciate you having me up here.
Thank you so much, Izzy. I really appreciate you. Welcome in.
I think,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Buzzy.
I was gonna say, I think like sometimes easier said than done. I wish more people really honed in on the never stop speaking about things you are passionate about,
Mhm.
even if people don't understand why you are passionate about them. I think, like, especially when we look at Palestine, like, a lot of people kind of jumped to the slogan of Free Palestine as if it was new without understanding its history. And I think that you should read and try to understand the things that you are passionate about based off of what you are seeing, and then engage even after the hashtag stop, even after the bullhorn stop, even after people stop crying in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
Stay steadfast in your beliefs.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and even more so, because one thing that, and I don't know if you were in when we were talking about it, but a portion of the conversation in which everyone on the panel kind of took a step back and said, it's not our place to actually dictate to the people of Palestine as far as how they recover, how they move forward. But I think that's something that we can't forget, right? Even though there has been a ceasefire agreed on, right, and it's supposed to go in place in the 19th, and hopefully it's successful and it's long lasting, but like that's just the start of the work, right? We can't just forget about what's happening there. And even more, like Athena, I know this is something that we talked about, right? We talked about how it's more than just what's happening in Ukraine, and it's more than what's happening in Palestine. But what's happening in the Congo, what's happening in Haiti, just like all around the board. And so I think that's a great thing for us to actually really focus on, is not just what's right in front of us, to your point, Buzzy, what's the actual waving of the pom poms or the crying or whatever, but not forgetting those people who are absolutely affected, that don't necessarily have a voice. Athena, I want to come back to you for a second. I would love to have you speak on, and I hate to say it like this, but some of the lesser known ones, right? Because I know we've spent most of this night speaking to what's happening in Palestine, which that's a huge deal. But I would love for you to really take a few minutes to share with everyone that's watching. We got about 160 people watching right now. Just some things that they might not know, and just anything that you would love to call to their attention.
Yeah, sure. I think, I think for me personally, I know that we say free Sudan, free Sudan, free Sudan a lot, or free Congo. But when it comes to Sudan, especially, I feel like a lot of people just don't understand what's going on. A lot of people are not fully paying attention to the fact that 14 million people have been displaced. That's about 30% of the population. At least 60%, 60,000 people have been unalived. This is an underestimate, right? The RSF, which is led by Hemeti, or his full name is General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, was formed in 2013 and has its origins in the notorious Janjaweed militia that itself had committed another genocide in Darfur many years ago, right? So they not only committed a genocide, but they also were accused of ethnically cleansing the region's non-Arabic population specifically. So the RSF as well, in 2019, there were protests in Sudan with people who wanted to address the issues and the critiques that they had with their government in 2019. And there was an infamous incident where 120 protesters, who were mostly students, were unalived in June of 2019. And that massacre was done by the RSF, which has been accused of countless other human rights abuses. So the RSF literally are like wreaking havoc in Sudan currently. And a lot of people don't even know who's fighting who's supporting the RSF, which literally is being supported by Chad, by the UAE, by the Central African Republic. Why is the UAE even there? Like, why is the UAE heavily backing this barbaric militia that is going around G-siding people? There was an incident where, when the RSF went into a specific area, a region, over 120, trigger warning, right? This is incredibly yeah, trigger warning to everybody here. But where over 100 women unalived themselves because they didn't want to get raped by the RSF. Because the RSF doesn't only use physical violence and torture as a weapon of war, but it also used sexual violence as a weapon of war. And so when they did get into this specific region a couple of months ago, I think it was towards the end of last year, you had over 100 women unaliving themselves, right? So you have the case of, for example, Gamar al-Din, who was visiting a friend in April of 2023. And he said that when he visited his friend and then he came back home, his mother, his father, his uncles, his brothers, and his sisters were all dead. They had all been unalived. And he himself said that he wanted to just not live anymore in that moment. He was a teacher. He lost dozens of his family members in one single day, and several of his neighbors were also unalived. And he also saw a group of fighters, again, trigger warning, sexual violence, a group of fighters strip like a woman naked and then rape her in the street in front of them. And he mentioned that the RSF told him that that area belongs to them now, not to him anymore, and not to the people who lived there. And he was their slave, right? So after the RSF took over that town, they told him, you are our slaves. And that is the level of violence that Sudanese people are going through. You have the case of Amina, for example, who was a 19-year-old who had fled from Darfur in Sudan, and she found out that she was pregnant and had to go to Médecins Sans Frontières, which Doctors Without Borders, because she wanted to get an abortion, because she had also been subjected to systemic violence, where I'm not going to go into detail, but it was multiple people, and she had to go and get an abortion done, right? So these are only two individual cases of thousands upon hundreds of thousands of millions of stories that are happening currently in Sudan, and a lot of people are not paying attention to that. You have what's happening in Haiti as well. The United Nations came out with a report stating that 5,600 Haitians had been unalived the past year. It's a complete crisis, right? Gang members have taken control of about 80% of the capital city as well, and it's just complete violence and havoc and chaos that Haitians, your average Haitians, are being subjected to. And I know a couple of Haitians as well. I know a Haitian person who I view as my sister, whose mother was kidnapped and unalived just about 1 or 2 years ago. So this is I understand that I'm trying to focus on individual stories and not only on the statistic or the number, because sometimes, unfortunately, one death is a tragedy, but 1,000 becomes a statistic. And we need to realize that there are individual people behind these numbers, these vast, countless numbers as well. And then I would like to focus on the silent genocide that is happening to Eritrean people. Eritrean people are being practically, like, 5,000 Eritreans are leaving every month due to external and internal factors, right? 5,000 leaving a month by a population of 3 to 5 million people, with almost 1 million people having already left. And then when they leave, they're at risk of being enslaved or trafficked in the Sinai, in Egypt, or in Libya. In Egypt, for example, in the Sinai, 95% of the victims who have been trafficked or tortured or enslaved have been Eritreans, right? And in Libya, more than 200,000 people have been trafficked, and Eritreans are also disproportionately represented there too. But you have the case of, hold on, I wanted to show this. If you could make me bigger, please, if you don't mind, Santana. You have the case of Naima Jamal, for example, who is an Ethiopian woman, a 20-year-old Ethiopian woman, and a couple of days ago, videos were released of her being tortured, and she is up for sale for $6,000. Like, what world do we live in when this woman here in Libya is up for sale for $6,000 and nobody is doing anything about it? This is an active slave trade that is happening. People are being trafficked. They're being held for ransom. And if their families cannot pay off the ransom quick enough, they get sold into slavery. As with Naima Jamal, that not only was a torture video released of her being tortured, but also a picture of her being tied up and waiting to be sold with countless other enslaved men, like trafficked men behind her, who also were waiting to be sold into slavery. It's 2025 and active slave trades exist, and these slave trades in Libya are actively funded by the EU. The EU is paying Libya militiamen immense amounts of money to kidnap people from the Saharan desert and to do this to them as a form of deterrent so they do not go to Europe. They don't want them to cross the Mediterranean Sea and go to Europe, so they're doing this to them. So this is also a silent G-side that I wanted to focus on as well. You can thank you very much, Santana. You can make me smaller. So not only is it happening in Haiti, it's happening in Congo, it's happening in Sudan, it's happening in East Africa, specifically in Eritrea as well, but also the countless other African people who have been enslaved in Libya and in the Sinai. It's happening in West Papua New Guinea with Indonesian, the Indonesian military men taking over that side of the island a couple of decades ago and unaliving 500,000 people. It's basically, we're living in a time with multiple G-sides. And if we get too lazy and don't do the right thing, how are we going to explain that to future generations? And all of these G-sides are actively, I would say, being created and funded and sustained by capitalism and by colonialism, neocolonialism, and imperialism as well.
Just to add on to that too, other mass unalivings that are happening, what the Azerbaijanis are doing to the Armenians, and this is another big silent G-side that not really many people talk about because the Indian government silences them. The Kashmir, what's happening to all the Kashmiri people in Kashmir, been happening for decades, and you know they barely get any closure of what's going on in Kashmir, unalivings that's going there because they're being repressed. All this.
Yeah, and so to feed back to it is, we cannot go on like this anymore. We cannot continue living in a world that allows this to happen and to continue happening, and we cannot continue to sustain these systems of oppression that are actively devaluing and dehumanizing and unaliving Black and brown bodies en masse. In mass, they're being unalived, right? So we have to do something about Western imperialism. We have to do something about imperialism. We have to do something about all of these economic corridors that are being proposed to be built, whether it is the Silk and Belt Initiative that China is trying to build currently through the Red Sea and the land route as well, or the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor that the West is trying to build with India, that's supposed to go through occupied Palestine. It's just, I don't understand why people aren't angry. Like, when I think about these things, they make me furious, especially when I think about what's happening to my people, like that, like my people, like my country is being actively ethnically cleansed and emptied out as well. It infuriates me. And I think we cannot do anything unless we inform ourselves about these issues first and foremost, and continue to pressure your representatives, your politicians, boycott, I don't know, like maybe say for a day, you're not going to spend anything as an act of protest, right? Try to organize. But way too few people are angry, and I don't understand why people are not angry.
Yeah, I just feel like it might get to a point where entire systems are eventually overthrown. You know, maybe not now, but decades later. I just think, in my opinion, with the imperialism is, you cannot elect a new leader. You have to overthrow the entire system to stop all this. Either that, or there needs to be a big united front that uses force to stop these groups, because these groups don't care. Like, you do protests, you do all this, but they'll still keep. I mean, yes, it brings more pressure, but they'll still keep ignoring. I feel like in some circumstances, you just need to replace those entire systems. And I feel like eventually, in the near future, they get overthrown or some force is created to stop these groups.
Yeah, no, I think there's something to that, and especially in the sense of um there's always been at least in the West, there's always been a sense of like, oh, we're the best, and this American experiment is going to last forever. And the more that the United States has dipped their hands into other people's pockets, for lack of better terms, you see not only the instability that's being created throughout the rest of the world, but you see the cracks and the crumbles, and just like things that are happening within our country to signal that like there's a possibility that this isn't going to last much longer. And it's there definitely has to be a change overall, and it can't continue the way it is. Alex, I know you haven't had an opportunity to say anything for a while. I wanted to come to Buzzy as well, but she's there's Buzzy's a tea. You were a teacup at your back. Would either one of you like to add anything?
Sure, I'd love to, unless Buzzy would like to speak. So,
No, I think that Athena covered it all. I think it is important to look at the individuals because it is true. I think when we give out data and statistics, people get lost in the numbers and they don't understand the significance of what that means. So I think that anytime we have an opportunity to share the individual experience of these people that are suffering, it is more impactful than anything we can say with the data, right? Because from listening to Athena, I hope everybody gathers that the suffering doesn't end when the slogans and the hashtags end. Like, the suffering is lifelong. There is a trauma in there. Even after recovery, there is trauma. And then we absolutely do not dictate to people how they move forward once they are afforded the opportunity to move forward. We don't get to judge them for the ways that they protect themselves after being inflicted upon with trauma.
Absolutely. Alex?
yeah, I was just going to say, adding on to when Tina was talking about the pressure around the world, I would add that here in the United States, we still have MMIW, right? Missing, I'll be TikTok safe, unalived Indigenous women. That's happening as we speak. Native American women are being abducted off of reservations and are brutally raped and then unalived. And I think it happens more than many of us would like to know, to be entirely honest with you. Happens every single day, and you don't see press coverage on it. You don't see anybody protesting over it, or I shouldn't say nobody, but not enough people, I think, are talking about it. And that's been an ongoing issue now for more than 400 years here in the United States. So I'd also add Myanmar as well, the G side of the Rohingya people. So that's continuing, and even I think China as well actually has sold weapons to the Tatmadaw, along with Israel, Ukraine. So not surprised there, I suppose. But yeah, there's a lot of suffering out in the world, and there's definitely, I guess you can call it like advocacy fatigue or something like that. Just keeping up with so much news. I mean, I study this for a living. I'm not only a captain in the Marine Corps Reserve, but I'm a graduate student in international affairs in my civilian career, and I intend to devote the rest of my life to advocacy, to humanitarianism, and as much as possible, a shift in the direction of U.S. foreign policy. I liked Fonzie's idea, and to be honest, my thoughts, as a lot of us, I think, are actually very radical and perhaps overly idealistic in terms of how I think these issues can be solved. In terms of what needs to be done, at the very least, people need to protest. They need to write, so exactly as Athena said, write to members of the House, write to your senators, organize protests, make content, make videos. We have the ability now with social media to broadcast information to millions of people within seconds. What we have today would have been science fiction even 30 years ago. And so, with that being said, especially those who have large platforms, you speak from a position of privilege. Please do so, because there are lives that depend on it. And with that being the case, I mean, for me personally, I would say that I consider myself a very privileged individual, and I'm hoping to use the position that I've been born into to do positive things. I mean, hoping to make connections out in DC, working for a think tank, and as much as possible. So how do people ask me, like, oh, if you're so critical of the U.S., you hate the U.S. so much, if you're so against Western imperialism, then how are you in the Marine Corps? I said, well, it's really not a complicated concept. If you know anything about General Shub, Smedley Butler, any of those big names that have come out of the Marine Corps over the years, right? There's a reason I talk about those folks. It's because if most Americans knew, it would change their minds. I think it would alter their perspective, because the reality is the U.S. is an empire, and that when the U.S. does anything that's humanitarian, it's serendipitous, put it that way. Right. So, like, for example, if we're talking about World War II, hard to argue that the Mustache Man it shouldn't have been stopped. Like, he absolutely needed to be stopped. Same thing with Imperial Japan. Same with fascist Italy. But it's not like the U.S. did that out of the kindness of their hearts. It wasn't inherently humanitarian. It was to get the U.S. out of the Depression, and it was to defend. The U.S. wanted to defend its own colonial holdings, to include Hawaii, when it was hit by Imperial Japan, right, with Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. And so, with that being the case, my argument is that shouldn't be the way U.S. foreign policy is. It shouldn't be about corporate interests. It should just be for humanitarian ideals. Because if we consider G-side, somebody's profiting, somebody's laughing their way to the bank, right? Somebody's selling the weapons to, like, for example, in the case of Sudan, an issue that I don't think we talk enough about. As I was mentioning earlier, there's a gun spoiler trade the U.S. has with the Emirates. So the U.S. will sell missiles and aircraft to the Emirates, along with vehicles like armored vehicles, Humvees, that the Emirates then turn around and sell to the RSF for a profit. They just want the gold, for example, out of Sudan. They don't care about the suffering and death of the Sudanese people. And with that being the case, I'm thinking, well, my attitude is, at the very least, the Emirates need to be sanctioned. And there needs to be, I don't know exactly who would do this next part, but I don't think that there is such a thing as being diplomatic with somebody who's waging a G-side. I think that the only thing a G-side lunatic understands is force. And I think that in the context of the RSF, they need to be destroyed. They need to be eradicated. Anybody, these January militias supporting them, need to be obliterated. I mean, anybody waging a G-side, raping women, enslaving children, and having like a literal slave trade needs to be executed. I mean, this is what the Union did to the Confederacy in the U.S. Civil War. This is what happened to the Mustache Man and to Imperial Japan, along with fascist Italy. I mean, I think that's what people who wage G-side deserve. And with that being the case, not saying I have all the answers, but that's certainly where I would start. I know it might sound kind of radical, but that's just what I think.
Yeah, no, listen, and I'll say this. I think it goes back and it harps on the point on the screen of how resistance or struggle is necessary. And I think multiple people have said it multiple ways, and I think there's a little bit of a conception of resistance or struggle has to be violent. Now, don't get me wrong, it can take that form of violence, but to Athena's point as well, it's like, it's what do we do, right? And I've said this multiple times throughout this week, and I know the way that my wife and I joined the resistance was by letting our money speak, in the sense that withholding those funds from certain companies or places or whatever that were willing to support G side, and actually trying to shift that money and put them in places where it could actually benefit people in need. And so I think that's a big thing, where no matter if it's dismantling a whole governmental system or whatever the case may be. I mean, as simple as boycotting or helping, it's all some form of resistance and all some form of struggle. With that being said, we're coming to the end, so I want to say this for all of the people that are here right now. Just for anyone that hasn't had an opportunity to hear this, or they don't fully understand what we're doing here tonight, because I know people have been in and out. There's some new people that hopped in. I want to one more time say, guys, if you have the ability to donate, please donate. Right? Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all of my pay links are in the link tree in the bio. Santana Speaks 24, Santana Speaks 24. What is happening is that everything that you guys donate, not only tonight, not only last night, but also Monday. So for these 3 nights, any and everything that you all donate is being donated to help people that are affected by these G sides. And so if you have the ability to donate, please, please, please consider donating. And any and everything that you guys donate over these 3 nights, the total, my wife and I, we will actually match and donate as well. So if you have that chance, if you have that ability, we're in the home stretch. This is the last night, the last opportunity. Please, please, please consider donating. Likewise, any gifts that you guys send, all of the money that we make off gifts, that will be donated as well. So maybe you have some extra coins, maybe you panel hop and you collect coins or whatever. If you can actually donate any gifts, please consider doing that as well, because any money made off gifts will be donated as well. And last but not least, maybe you want to actually donate on your own time. You can do so as well. Please follow. We have these links here in the page where you can actually go. You can find out more about these different organizations where you can donate to. Then you can donate on your own. We also have these links running in the poll, so you can pull that information. So please, 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 this is the home stretch. If you want to go ahead and donate, please consider doing so. Anything is accepted. Everything is appreciated. With that being said, I know we have to wrap it up, so I'm going to start from the bottom and move up just for any closing words. Buzzy, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I don't. I think this has been a very fruitful conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Not only tonight, right, but this entire week. I know for a fact that I've learned so much. We've had a pretty good influx and really good panel conversation, and at times I know we kind of veer off from place to place, but it has been a really really good information and really good discourse, and so I've really really enjoyed it. So, but anyway, Buzzy, thank you for coming up and spending some time with us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
Have a good night, Buzzy. Alex, anything else that you wanted to add?
All I would say is that I can't convince somebody to have a conscience when they refuse to have one. I can talk all day long about what causes civil wars. I can talk about the methods and the techniques for which they can be resolved, but at the end of the day, I can't. When it comes to psychology, right, human psychology, you can't convince somebody to have a conscience when they refuse to have one. That is probably the single most frustrating part of my advocacy. Is I'll debate with someone who, for example, will not see, like a Zionist who will not see Palestinians as human beings. They just refuse to even consider them humans. They look at them as vermin and treat them as such. I don't know how to break somebody of that. I really don't.
Yeah, no, the one thing that I will say about that is that's the issue that I have as well, right? And I genuinely don't care. I'm sorry, I genuinely don't know how some people don't care, right? I mean, just I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I think looking outside of yourself and taking the opportunity to understand that, I wore this hat all week for a reason, that it's not all about you. I mean, that's really, really what it boils down to. Some people are so self-centered, or either, like to your point, don't have a conscience or whatever, but I don't get it. And hopefully, hopefully one day people will be better. But with that said, Alex, thank you so much for coming up tonight. Thank you for coming up last night. Thank you for spending time with us and actually helping us go through these different conversations.
To be of service.
Thank you. Fonzo, any last words for you?
I don't want to extend this too much, but I will end with this. At least from my counts of all the G sides that I've analyzed, starting from the Armenian G side to everything going on now, the Zionists entity has always had some part to play in it, whether it was sending arms to the armed groups or creating division or whatever. So, be aware of who the enemy is. Don't fight amongst each other. That's their enemy's tactics. They want to make The people who aren't supposed to fight amongst each other, divide and conquer. So don't let them do that to you. We have to be unified as one front, and that's how you will win, is by being unified and knowing who the real enemy is. That's all I want to say. And I appreciate you having me up here.
No worries. Thank you so much for coming up. I really appreciate you and spending some time with us. You have a wonderful evening.
Same with you, brother.
Oh, sorry. Athena, what did you want to add?
Yes, Santana. Sorry. I had to go on mute. Not gonna lie, I got like a really bad headache. I think I made myself so angry that I got like a headache. Because I just like people not being angry at the multiple G-sides that are happening on a global scale, people just living their lives and completely like this complete bystander effect to me is just infuriating because it makes me angry. So I don't understand why people aren't angry, and then them not being angry makes me even angrier. So, but I needed a sip to calm down. But
you
what's
know
I
what?
say?
But and
Mm-hmm.
so I'll share this. You know, whatever. So you and I messaged you this earlier, and I truly mean it. And I just said a little bit about it, but I don't understand how people can't care. Right. And like I understand ignorance, right? Because if you don't know, then you don't know. But then when you know, to either turn a blind eye or to say, you know, those people deserve it, or that's not my problem, or I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Like I genuinely don't get it. I mean it's not healthy for me probably, but I like I have just so much anger, I think, because I know that people in the global south and black and brown people deserve to be treated better. I know that we all deserve to be treated better, whether it is black and brown bodies in the global south, whether it is black and brown bodies in general. Like when I see how black people are treated as well on a global scale, it kind of like it makes me so angry because I know we deserve better. You know what I mean? So I don't get it. I don't get how people are not angry. I don't get how you can just live your life knowing full well that there is somebody who is exactly like you, the same work ethics, the same goals, dreams, fears, desires, and yet they are stuck trying to survive, trying to live, being unalived. Like I don't know, like I'm in my I'm in my 20s. I have a lot of ambitions. I would like to continue ending up being a professor and like getting my PhD and stuff like that. And I just think like how many women like me exist within Gaza? How many women like me exist within Congo or Sudan? And the only reason that I have the privileges that I have today is just sheer luck.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be born and raised where I was born and raised, right? So it's just that kind of like angers me. But two things I wanted to say. Number one, I noticed that if people do want to donate to Palestinian charities, PCRF is there. I think PCRF isn't on that list. I just noticed that. So PCRF is a charity that you can donate to. And a second thing I wanted to say was that a revolution is not an apple that falls when it's ripe. You have to make it fall. And at some point, you have to make the apple of revolution fall. But thank you, Santana. I appreciate you for this live series. Hopefully, it's not going to be the last live series. But
listen, it might be the last one on the Tiki Talks, but it won't be the last one for my community because I got plans. Listen,
definitely.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm a survivor. I will not give up. Hey.
Of course.
Yeah.
I
let
used
me-
to. I just remembered myself. Like I learned the whole dance. I used to do that dance.
Really?
In my
No.
Yes. Yes. Survivor. Oh my gosh. I dance. Anyways,
Did you have the fan blowing with your hair and you like, you know?
I
Like, were
used
you-
to stand in front of like the AC. And I used to, oh my gosh, I used to love Michelle's outfit that like in that song, like her full like head to toe, like what was it, like red, not red, but like burgundy colored outfit.
camo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no.
Wait, hold on. What am I thinking? Oh, no, I'm thinking
Oh.
of Soldier. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the wrong one. I'm thinking of Soldier.
Yeah, no, so I learned the whole dance, not gonna lie. So I used to do it. But anyways, thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate you so much, and Hannah too, for doing this, for matching the donations. I am very excited to see
real quick.
how much was raised.
So this is the total for the 3 nights. Now there is a caveat. There's going to be a little bit more because we still have to get the funds for the gifts for tonight. But as of right now, over the 3 nights, we've raised $1,025 over the 3-night period. Now, whatever the gifts come out to, at the very least, we're going to make a total donation of $2,050. But we also are going to add on whatever we make for the rest of this evening for the gift. And so what I'll say real quick before we go out, while we still have about 150 people hanging out, we have one last gift goal. It's a finish out the night gift goal. It's a meteor shower. It's a meteor shower. If anyone would like to take care of this meteor shower, it would really help, and that would go towards the final gift goal. And again, remember, we are not only taking the money that you guys have donated and actually donating that, and we're matching it, but we are taking whatever you guys donate in gifts, the money that we make off of gifts, and we are donating that as well. So if anyone wants to do it, we can do it, right? That is the last big gift of the night. With that being said, what I would like to do is I'm gonna get with you. We're gonna get the funds donated. I don't know if we want to divvy it up, go do in one direction, whatever. But whatever we decide, I will make sure that there's 1, transparency, and 2, follow up, so everyone gets an opportunity to know how the funds are allocated, and we do all the wonderful things. But last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't say, Athena, thank you so much for being here. Right, you didn't have to do this. I know the time difference that you're dealing with, and so for you to actually give us some of your time for 3 nights in a row for 3 hours straight, I know that's a heavy lift, and I just appreciate you so much, because not only did you help put together this entire panel as far as the topics, as far as the links. Hey, Tech Memphis, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for the media shower. You are freaking awesome. Absolutely, guys, 1,000,000 W's. Keep the W's going for Tech Memphis. Keep the W's going, please, 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 please. Keep them rolling. But thank you for putting together like topics. Thank you for getting the information on the places where we can actually donate. But thank you for leading the conversations, bringing the information, like all the truth bombs, holding people accountable, the interactions, not only in the panel, but the chats. Just thank you for everything that you've done. It means so much to me. I'm truly honored, and I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I would say the same thing for you as well. I appreciate you for even asking me if I would want to do this live series with you, and I appreciate you for the opportunity as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate you too, and I appreciate all the work that you have put, all the work and care that you have put into these lives as well, Santana. So hopefully we can host more future live series together.
You know it.
Exactly,
We're gonna figure
TikTok,
something
but
out, Athena.
we have to figure something out. But I hope you have a good evening. I have to get ready for work now,
Do your
so
thing.
I have to go. But I
Have a good one.
appreciate you,
I'll
Santana.
see you.
You too.
Guys, it's been a really good night. It's been a really good night. It's been a really good night. Thank you to everyone for everything that you guys have done, right? Thank you for all of your taps, your likes, your shares. Thank you for just being here, right? There's still 150 of us here. The one thing I will call out, guys, if you're not following me on Twitch, make sure you're following me on Twitch, Santana24J. Follow me on YouTube, Santana Speaks. And as a matter of fact, just a quick favor for everyone that's still watching. If you're not following me on YouTube, follow me on YouTube, subscribe. It's free, but also can everyone actually just go, engage, right? Someone told me that we need to get more engagement on the video. So if you can go and maybe give me a thumbs up and also, type something, at least a 7-word sentence on some of the videos, it helps gain traction and helps do all of those things. So go to YouTube, make sure you subscribe, thumbs up the videos. If you want to say, hey, I just came here because you told me to come, so I'm here to give a thumbs up. Like, you can do that. So we just need that engagement on those videos there on TikTok as well. So follow me on Twitch, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Blue Sky. We will, the faith of TikTok is still hanging in the balance, but regardless, the late night crew, we're not going anywhere. We will be on Twitch, we will be on YouTube, and we'll see where else we go. Anyway, guys, thank you all for being here. Kev, thank you so much for subscribing. You're amazing. Thank you guys for everything. I love you all. We're gonna go raid Carbon. Oh, carbon.gg. Carbon.gg. Let's go raid Carbon. Carbon.gg. Let's go raid Carbon with a Santana raid. We will raid Carbon. Carbon.gg. Santana raid. Don't meet me there. Beat me there. I love you guys. Thank you all. And as always,